93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, good Tuesday morning to you. Thank you for spending it with us. It is a busy night of hoops, kind of like last Tuesday. Nothing like a busy night of hoops last Tuesday. And Mark Dykton going with the All-Indiana parlay, and I think by 7:48 p.m. that thing was toast. We'll see what one looks like for tonight. We'll get you set for, again, busy night on the hardwood. Again, Pacers just TNT exclusive tonight. And to talk more about that, certainly sprinkling some Colts. And he made a stop over to the DeWanna Bonner press conference. And Caitlin Clark spoke to the media yesterday. He is James Boyd from The Athletic. James, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. It's been a while, so I had to,
Are we on?
We are.
We are. Loud and clear. It has been a...
that one. the one above you.
Oh, man. We have a mic issue here.
It's been a while since I've done this, so sorry about that. But yes, as you can tell, a little rusty. But yeah, I'm good. Excited to be here. Hard to get up, but made it for you guys.
Yeah, you were grinding last night, weren't you?
A little bit, but it was fun. It was cool to talk to DeWanna Bonner, get her thoughts on Caitlin Clark, and then vice versa with Caitlin Clark talking about DeWanna Bonner, the Fever moves, and just them kind of going for it this year. I thought the most interesting thing that DeWanna Bonner said was, I want to win a championship. She's on a one-year deal. So that must mean this year.
Yeah, I do want to get to that at some point. Someone asked me, can you make an NFL comp for kind of what the Fever have done this offseason? And I think it's an interesting question. I think you'd probably be the perfect person to ask. So we'll get to that here coming up a little bit later. Rick Carlisle, 8 o'clock. It's Tuesdays, back on the Eastern time zone. Again, 7:30 tonight for the Pacers. I think, and I don't know if either of you guys have you guys seen the confirmation of Kevin Harlan and Reggie Miller on the call tonight? I think Kevin said that to John when he was on with him last week.
I have not seen the confirmation myself.
So TNT exclusive, though. So no Chris Quinn or JJ for you tonight. Miles Turner questionable with a neck injury. You know, the Pacers haven't lost back-to-back games since Christmas. It's kind of wild what they're trying to avoid here tonight. It is the Knicks, OG Anunoby. The thought is he will likely not play. I know he's listed as questionable. I think Shams Charania had reported probably after the All-Star break for him. So Pacers, Knicks inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The winner of this wins the season series. And again, tomorrow will be the back-to-back with the Wizards. That will wrap up this first half of the NBA season. And then college action. It's another busy Tuesday here. Purdue has got the week of all weeks in the Big Ten. They will face Michigan, try to go for the season sweep up in Ann Arbor. That is a Peacock game. And if you want to continue to watch the local Big Ten teams, you'll stick with Peacock at 9 o'clock, Indiana at East Lansing. So for Purdue, as weird as it sounds, you're cheering for your rival tonight after you try and take care of business at 7 o'clock. How many Purdue fans, if we put a poll out there, how many Purdue fans do you think just cannot cheer for Indiana to beat Michigan State?
I would say there's probably like more than not, so like 60%.
And I know you love that.
Yeah.
You love the sick rivalry fandom hatred.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of why I love sports. I think hate is a good part of it. And when you can hate responsibly, it is very fun.
Yeah, that Alex chimes in here in the YouTube chat. That was a bit of a Jake Query moment for us to start the show there. Jake, sometimes the internet wouldn't work. Sometimes the printer wouldn't work. His login wouldn't work. We did have a little bit of a mic issue to start this Tuesday morning. So, again, a lot of hoops we'll throw at you, some lingering football thoughts. I thought Tony Dungy had an interesting takeaway from the Hall of Fame voting. I want to toss James' way. This is pretty much your and I's first conversation here, like you said, since, in the Colts season. It's kind of wild as you sit here on this Tuesday morning. Dude, 2 weeks from today, we're going to be at the Combine.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're like a month from today is the legal tampering period, which, as you know, that means that free agent deals, start to get signed. So it's about to happen in a hurry here. And I think what I'm looking forward to the most is the words Chris Ballard said a month ago, are they actions? Because the words were different, in my opinion. Yeah. I don't know if you would agree with that, but the words were different. Now will the actions be different as well?
I think they were more different when it came to free agency than the draft. He kind of gave himself a pat on the back for his draft classes in recent years, and we can debate.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
who were misses and who were hits, but I do think that everyone's eyes kind of, got a little wider and ears perked up. We talked about free agency, and particularly needing to add more competition to the roster. When he was talking about his failures this past season, the thing he mentioned was, I did not create a competitive enough environment for these guys to feel a healthy level of uncomfortable. And so, to me, translation, that should be go out and get some guys that can make you, one, better, and two, uncomfortable, because obviously the guys you have in there, the vets that you're kind of leaning on, all of them aren't getting the job done. And so I'm curious to see if that means, do you go out and get a veteran, safety that'll help a defense? Do you go out and get a backup running back because JT can't play every single snap forever? Or do you draft one? Whatever the case may be, we will see. And I'm curious to kind of pick his brain on that and other things going on as well. I mean, one of the dark horse things that's not dark horse, probably not the best term, but one of the underlying storylines is Braden Smith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
What are you doing at right tackle?
Agree. Yeah.
So things
I think
like
it's
that.
the most offensive line questions we've had entering offseason
Yeah.
in quite a while. There are some young options you can turn to, but are you ready to do that? How many spots are you comfortable doing that at? So those will be things that I'll be curious about here as we get a little bit closer to all of that. So we'll chat about that. Apologies for Jeff Rabjohns yesterday at 9. He is scheduled to join us coming up at 9. He, based off his updates yesterday on the life after Mike Woodson, it was a busy day for Rabby. I feel this way about really how Indiana's had the last couple of weeks. It's amazing to think, and again, let me be very clear, I don't think it's going to happen, but given their schedule, they are one great week away from being right there in the NCAA tournament mix. You just saw Clemson, have two big wins in 3 nights. If Indiana somehow mustered up the ability to do that, they'd be right there. Now again, I do not think they will do that. Let me be very clear. They have not won a game over a ranked opponent in nearly 2 years. They've lost those games by an average of 14 points. They are a double-digit underdog tonight at Michigan State. Again, that will follow Purdue and Michigan, and this is the week. At Michigan, home to Wisconsin, and then a week from today, Purdue will be at Michigan State. You look at those standings right now. They are 11-2. Michigan's 10-2. Michigan State is 10-2. This is the week of all weeks for Matt Painter's bunch. They handled business last week, and here we go now, facing the top of the Big Ten here, and we'll see if they can get the season sweep over Michigan after absolutely dominating them a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you look at what Purdue's doing, I didn't expect it to look like this. I'll be first to admit. I knew they were probably pretty good because you got to trust Matt Painter and what he's done, but I've been just so impressed with Braden Smith, obviously, and others, but I think with Braden in particular, when it comes down to his, let's just say, poise and his ability to kind of bend the game to his will. As I said the other day on Wish TV, I think it's like watching Tyler Ulis again for me, or like watching Jalen Brunson, the way he's able to control a college game. And so it feels like when you have that sort of leadership, you're able to do a lot of things that maybe other teams just can't do. And I kind of live by the saying, guards win in March. And so when you have really good guard play, those are usually the guys that can get you on another deep run. Now, I'm not saying Purdue's going to, run the table the rest of the regular season and go on this crazy, crazy run in the tournament, but they're really good because they're led by Painter and a Painter type of player, where a guy who's under-recruited, wasn't a huge name coming out of high school outside of Indiana, but has proven to be, one of the better players in the country.
He just has an exceptional knack for knowing what level of quarterback he needs to be. And I say that in this realm, James. Do I need to be the distributor or do I need to be the scorer? And within a game, knowing when is the right time to do both of those things. The other week or the other game, they're at Iowa, and boom, he puts on the scoring hat. He's got 31 on a highly efficient night. And then, you go back to Friday night, and they scored 90, and he has, 13 assists. I mean, they scored 90 in both those games last week. In one game, he's got 31. The other game, he's got 9. It's just he is such a beautiful point guard. And, Brunson is a very good comp, and, Brunson tonight, yeah, he might have one of those 30 pieces. And he also might have, 12 or 13 dimes. And obviously when Tyrese Halliburton is going, which, he wasn't out west, he has that ability. And Trey Kaufman-Wren has taken that game to another level.
Absolutely.
I penciled in 14-8 for him in the Big Ten at the start of the year. If you could get that, I think you'd sign up for it. and he has certainly eclipsed that. So, again, Purdue, Michigan, tonight in Ann Arbor. That is 9 o'clock. Purdue is actually, that's 7 o'clock. Purdue is actually a slight underdog in that one. Indiana at Michigan State, 11.5. I believe the Pacers are also a slight underdog tonight. We'll get to a little bit of that backup center news as well. It sounds like Jahlil Okafor will be getting the call-up from the Mad Ants here. That Mark Williams trade drama with the Lakers was quite something. Were you on the Pacers beat when the Karis LeVert physical thing happened?
No, but I've read about this, and honestly, it was a good thing, a blessing in disguise for him, honestly.
Oh, 1,000%. So for those that forget that story, that was January 2021. LeVert gets traded here from Brooklyn. The Pacers do their, typical physical like every NBA team does, and they find that mass in his kidney. And it was a cancerous mass, and they were able to remove it. He missed 2 months after that, and then came back. And I thought LeVert, he wasn't here for long, but he was a really nice player.
Yeah.
When he was here, but I almost take for granted the whole, hey, pending a physical. Well, we see it with this Mark Williams trade where now it was rescinded. Well, the trade deadline's done, but the Lakers clearly still need help at center. So the thought was the Pacers would be bringing in Alex Len. We talked about him a little bit yesterday, former 5th overall pick. But with the Lakers theoretically having more open playing time at center, it sounds like Len and his representation have pivoted and looking into that area, whereas Jahlil Okafor, could be called up. And I guess two things. One, again, the Pacers need depth at center. It's a 10-day contract. We'll see how long this happens because Miles Turner is questionable for tonight. Did practice a little bit yesterday. Neck injury for Turner. So we'll see about his availability for tonight here. Again, 2 games left till the All-Star break.
Yeah, I think the Jahlil Okafor signing is one that you kind of just need a body if you do have to throw him out there. And he's familiar with the Pacers. He's been around with their G League team, obviously. But quick story, I went and saw him in high school because he's from the Chicago area.
Right,
so
right.
I got
Whitney
to see,
Young, right?
Yeah, he went to Whitney Young. And so I got to see him and Jabari Parker play against each other when Jahlil Okafor was the number 1 junior in the country and Jabari was the number 1 senior in the country. And I was a junior at the time, and I went to this game, and I was thinking, I'm never going to the NBA. Because all these guys are so big and so fast, and they're really good. And he's been through a lot injury-wise as well. So it's kind of one of those feel-good stories, too. Like, obviously, if you're the Pacers, you don't want to have to rely on him long-term. But if you do have to turn to him for a period.
Yeah, Thomas Bryant's in foul trouble.
Yeah,
like that,
it's one of those things where it's like, this guy's been out of the NBA, I believe, for like the last 4 years, but he's still kind of chasing that dream. So you kind of have to respect his journey. And then as far as the Lakers thing goes, I mean, there's never a dull moment on that beat ever. But I will say, I think they've been playing good basketball. They're a fun team. We saw what they did to the Pacers the other day. But the bottom line is, if you don't have big men, you're not going to go very far, at least in my opinion, in the playoffs. Like, as great as LeBron and Luka are, they're not 7 feet, and you kind of need some size, in the NBA, point blank.
14-5-4 for Luka last night, 24 minutes of action, his debut. First time he had played since Christmas. I'd kind of forgotten he had been out for that long. The Lakers rolled the Jazz last night. Again, Okafor's been with the Mad Ants. He didn't play last night, so indicating the Pacers will probably make this call up. Still nothing official on that. We'll keep you updated. But he had 27 and 15 on Saturday. I just always remember Okafor and just being beyond mesmerized by his skill. Like, offensively, his footwork. Really, the only reason why he didn't carve out maybe a longer NBA career was, yes, injuries, and then, he's not the greatest defensive center. But offensively, oh, man, you just throw it to him and watch him work.
He's like a throwback player.
He's like he's like a taller Siakam.
Yeah, because he's not going to shoot a bunch of threes. He's not this modern big man. And
he's not some freak athlete at 6'11",
I've had this conversation, honestly, a lot with people back home when we were talking about his high school career and what he could do going forward. It's like if Jahlil Okafor was 20 years in the past, he'd be an even better player, considering how much the game has changed. But, again, give him credit for kind of grinding it out and still chasing the dream because he's been through so much. And I do think there's a certain level of, mortality you kind of have to accept when you're supposed to be the guy and you never really become it.
He was, 3rd overall pick?
I believe so. Come out of Duke. I know they had won the national championship. And
right here. They won it right here.
Yeah, he had a chance to, in his mind, be a franchise player over there in Philly, and then it just never really worked out. And so obviously, you look up years later, and here you are, and still trying to get on a roster, make your dreams happen. And like I said, I mean, is he going to be some, franchise guy or some building block here in Indianapolis? I don't think that that's the case. However, you look at what he has to offer, and again, size is a big part of it.
That is the voice of James Boyd from The Athletic. He'll be in today, of course, and tomorrow. There is one Super Bowl thing that we continue to do, leaving the Super Bowl each year, and I'm dumbfounded by it. I can't believe we're still doing this. It's unbelievable. It makes no sense to me. I thought when I saw it yesterday, I thought it was a stunt devil that I was watching. I'll get to that here coming up. We'll talk some Colts, certainly, on this Tuesday morning. Reminder, Rick Carlisle at 8. We're efforting Jeff Rabjohns again coming up at 9. Thanks for spending this Tuesday morning with us. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton coming at you. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum March 10th and 11th.
It's a Tuesday. You know that means Rick Carlisle at 8 o'clock, a man that used to cover the Pacers under Rick Carlisle. James Boyd in studio with us here from The Athletic. He'll be with us today and tomorrow. James, will see about the status of Miles Turner for tonight. Pacers and Knicks over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That is a 7:30 tip. Again, TNT exclusive for this one. A neck injury for Turner. He's questionable. Here was Rick Carlisle yesterday after practice on the health of his center.
Today he did some parts of practice with the team. I think the best way to characterize this is that he's been improving each day, and we're not in a position to rule him out for tomorrow or Wednesday.
James will ask Rick when he joins us at 8, but it was, I would say, kind of an ugly West Coast trip for the Pacers. They went 2-2, but big picture-wise, they did not play very good basketball really at all. Got off to some extremely slow starts. I'm pretty curious to see how they will respond tonight. Again, back-to-back tomorrow at Washington, but very interested to see how they play New York. These two teams haven't met in quite a while this season.
Absolutely. We always know there's fireworks when those two teams face off. The fan bases, like I said earlier, hate each other, which I always enjoy. But beyond that, I think the slow starts is kind of something you definitely want to kind of nip in the bud, mainly because although you're able to get over the hump in some of these games, it is not a winning recipe. It's not something you want to create habits of, especially at this point in the season. You want to play better basketball going into the break, and obviously that'll be huge for the Pacers, not only to get healthy, but to show you can be a little bit more locked in as you try to continue to surge. Because as we've seen, despite this, they still be one of the best teams in basketball since the calendar year started.
Shot quality, transition defense, rebounding, and those are some of the issues that the Pacers have pointed to for their slow starts. Again, 7:30 tonight inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Speaking of tonight, both on the road, both in the state of Michigan. It'll be Purdue at Michigan coming up tonight, number 7 versus number 20. This is Peacock, 7 o'clock, Noah Eagle, Robbie Hummel. Again, the Boilers are a slight underdog. Certainly a couple weeks ago, it was an absolute ass-kicking from Purdue over Dusty May's bunch. 22 turnovers for Michigan in that game. Now, the Wolverines have won 4 straight. This is a big-time Big Ten matchup. You look at the top of the standings, 11-2 Purdue, 10-2 Michigan. So a huge one tonight. And the Boilers' schedule certainly toughens up. Of their final 7, 6 of them quad 1 games. Speaking of the other game in Michigan tonight, it's 9 o'clock. It's also on Peacock. Paul Burmeister and Austin Rivers. I didn't realize Austin Rivers is a color commentator.
Me either, honestly, but
that dude could get a bucket off the bench in the NBA.
He probably could. He was the number 1 player in high school when he was coming out, so yeah.
Now, brother Jeremiah Rivers, former IU legend, right? Transferred from Georgetown there, played for Tom Crean. Indiana at Michigan State tonight. They are an 11.5-point underdog. Michigan State has lost 2 games since November. Both of those are on their West Coast trip here in the Big Ten. So we will see if Indiana can get off the old 0-10 against ranked opponent streak over the last 2 years. They have not only lost 10 straight against ranked teams, they've lost them by an average of 14 points per game.
Yeah, but the interesting part about these last few losses, you look at Michigan, it's like 3-point loss. You look at Wisconsin, it's a 12-point loss, but they were in these games. Purdue, 5-point loss.
Yeah, so Purdue they were certainly in. Wisconsin,
no, I would say no, but like Michigan and Purdue, you have a chance to actually finish the game, and I think that's one of the most annoying parts about this if you're an IU fan as of late, is that you're not even getting embarrassed in every single game. It's like the same disaster keeps happening where you cannot finish the game. And so obviously it doesn't bode well for tonight's game against Michigan State. But, if you're in it, you want to be able to, give them that knockout punch. So we'll see how it goes. I'm very curious. And then also to see how you respond to a bunch of the noise, swirling you and your coach. And if that's going to factor in at all. Because as much as Mike Woodson wants to say or not say how it affects the team, it does, when your coach is basically saying, I'll see you guys later.
Miles Rice didn't play a minute in the second half. Last game, we'll see about him tonight. Again, 9 o'clock in East Lansing. You were over at Fever practice yesterday, and you heard from Caitlin Clark, correct?
Yes, she was there to welcome in DeWanna Bonner, who is a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame.
Gosh, I thought Bonner was just a thorn in the side of the Fever in that playoff matchup last year.
Yes, she's really good. I think she'll offer versatility on the offensive end because she can create her own shot and take the pressure off Caitlin. defensively, she can move the puppies and play some defense. But also, I do think that she brings that championship experience, and she wants to win another championship here. And I think that was really, really telling, because you're talking about a player who was suited or courted up rather by the rest of the league as well, and she chose to come here to potentially chase another ring.
Well, Caitlin Clark had some thoughts on what the Fever have done this offseason. We'll get to that audio here in a bit. Luka last night, his Laker debut, 14-5-4 for him. 24 minutes, his first game action in a month and a half. The Lakers rolled the Jazz. All right, on the other side, that lingering Super Bowl thought, where is James at from a Colts standpoint here? This offseason, we'll hit on a couple of those items. Rick Carlisle at 8. It's a Tuesday morning. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton coming at you.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, honestly, and I feel very fortunate and lucky to come here to stay in the Midwest. And this is the franchise in all of women's sports. I say, no matter what sport it is, they're certainly investing. They see the type of crowds we get. They see the excitement we're generating, not only in the state of Indiana but all across the country. And I think the next few years are going to be amazing for this franchise, and will continue to be for hopefully 10 plus years, and hopefully we win a few championships. But they're investing to help us be really good. So just putting all the right pieces together and doing it on the floor to return that favor to them. But I'm just really thankful to be here, and thankful to all of Pacers Sport and Entertainment, the Simon family, and then obviously Kelly and Amber as well.
That's Caitlin Clark. Yesterday over at the announcement of DeWanna Bonner joining the Fever, a slew of moves they've made this offseason, and it is, to steal Jim Irsay phrase, it's all chips in here for the Fever. They have not messed around this offseason. I want to get a little bit more into that. James Boyd with us today and tomorrow from The Athletic. He was over at that press conference. Someone was asking me yesterday, James, could you kind of make an NFL comp for what the Fever have done? I think it's kind of unique what they've done. But when I throw that your way, is there anything that kind of comes to mind?
It's a tough one because it's such a different sport. But I would say, I won't say the Eagles because there's no Saquon Barkley comparison. I'm trying to think.
Well, I think like Houston and Washington, for example, they have done some significant things over the past couple of off seasons with the rookie contract quarterback.
I think Washington is probably a good comp. Not like an apples for apples, not one for one, but it's in the same
pedigree of the moves they've made.
Yeah, like they brought in Bobby Wagner, who had won a championship in Seattle.
Won a title.
Exactly, and you can kind of see that same sort of mindset with the Fever, who are clearly taking advantage of the Caitlin Clark rookie contract
She's like the sixth highest paid player on the team, or seventh highest. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah,
and you can speak to this a little better. I think the CBA is playing some into this.
Yeah.
The WNBA, they'll have a new CBA coming up next offseason is the thought there. So for DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, Kelsey Mitchell, gets the franchise tag, if you will. Sydney Colson. A lot of these are just one-year deals. So it's kind of like everybody is sprinting to the one-year deal, and everybody wants then to reap the benefits, understandably, of the new CBA. Now, for DeWanna Bonner, this might be it. I mean, she's, 37 years old?
37. It doesn't sound like it's it, though. She sounded like she wants to keep playing, and she wants to keep trying to chase some things.
She didn't look like she was walking up the 18th hole. She looked like she was a damn good player, really, in that playoff series. So,
absolutely.
Plenty more to get to on that front. Where would you slot the Fever in? Would you slot them in that Group A? Is that weird to do when they haven't won a playoff game in seemingly a decade? So we'll get to that here a little bit later as James is over at Fever yesterday. Rick Carlisle, reminder, he is going to join us coming up at 8 o'clock. We will try to get back to last-minute cancellation for Jeff Rabjohns yesterday. We'll try to get to him 9 o'clock. Speaking of 9 o'clock, it'll be Indiana at Michigan State coming up at 9. Purdue at Michigan at 7. It is a busy day, a busy night of hoops here in the Circle City. I am still dumbfounded that we still do this after the Super Bowl. I cannot believe that this is still a thing. When I saw it yesterday, I thought, there's no way that can be him. That has to be a stunt devil. We still do the trip to Disney World.
You know what? That is a thought that I had as well. And then I was thinking, Jalen Hurts doesn't have children as far as I can remember. So I was like, why are you doing this?
There's no way that's Jalen Hurts on the float up there. Do you think there's anybody that is going to Disney World because they can't wait to see the Super Bowl MVP?
Maybe. I mean, people are very involved fans, so it wouldn't surprise me if people kind of took that bet and kind of made the trip beforehand.
Mark saying to his wife, saying to Ashley, okay, here we are. The Bears are going to make it. We're going to go to Disney the second week of February, and you know what? Caleb Williams is going to be on that float, and I'm going to wave to him.
Yep. I'd shove the kids out of the way. Like, you've seen Winnie the Pooh plenty of times. I want to shake Caleb Williams' hand.
How much money? Can you look this up, Mark? How much money did Jalen Hurts get for that?
I was gonna say I think they probably get paid to go. I know they get paid to go to the Pro Bowl.
Certainly have to get paid.
So
I mean, he needs to get paid. You imagine Jalen Hurts? I don't know if Jalen Hurts is a drinker, but he probably had a late night on Sunday, and then having to leave his teammates to go to Disney World, and James Boyd, nothing practice is good birth control for James Boyd, like hearing us talk in the media room about our children. I was stunned when I saw that yesterday. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're still doing this?
Yeah, and then the other funny part about it was that he was doing an interview for it. Like, so that's my thing. I saw like some highlight clips, if you want to call it that, of him riding rides with his, I think it's his wife or his fiance. And then he's sitting down doing an interview with like Good Morning America. And I'm like, what is going on? Why are you doing this? But hey, when you win a Super Bowl, I guess you can do a bunch of things and just check all the boxes, all the bucket list items you might have had. And for a guy like that who's overcome a lot, I respect it.
I just stunned me. I thought the D-line should have been the MVP. Frankly, I thought Hurts was good in the game, but I just thought their D-line, James. I mean, if you look at, I couldn't believe this stat. CBS sent it out yesterday. Chiefs are the first team in Super Bowl history to not make it across midfield on their first 9 drives of the game.
My goodness. I knew Patrick Mahomes was sacked a career high 6 times. The craziest stat from that was that the Eagles never blitzed. They got home with 4 every single time. And so, to me, as I told you off air, it was like watching a 6A team, Center Grove, play, a 2A school where you just out weight classed. And so that's what it looked like to me.
Which, man, saying that in the NFL is a bold – I mean, you're not wrong, but, I mean, that's a damning statement.
I know. And, again, this is a Chiefs team that we've seen play really great football. They won or found a way to win this past year, even when it wasn't pretty. So for it to not even be close was alarming. And I think it's funny that this is the one thing I'll say that we do after every Super Bowl every year that I'm always shocked by is like, team goes to Super Bowl, team loses, and the sky is falling. Is it over? Will they make it back? Is everything need to be stripped down? I'm like, relax. I mean, this team, they got their teeth kicked in, don't get me wrong. But I don't know if there is this reason to have this mass panic when you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes to kind of lead you. He was off his rocker early, and I think the pressure kind of got to him and really had him, running for his life. And he made some bad throws, uncharacteristic throws beyond that, but they just stood no chance. Like, that was one of those games, Kevin, when I was like, you know how you think of all the games, Super Bowl history, it's like, if they do this again, if the Saints don't get that onside kick against the Colts, do the Colts come out and win? Whatever the case may be. I thought there was no chance if you run that game back that the Chiefs would win. Like, you cannot win with your offensive line getting bullied that much. It was bad.
And to me, what was so stunning about it was it's not like the Eagles blitzed. I mean, they're just front 4, just absolutely dominated.
My big guys are better than your big guys.
I mean, absolutely dominated Kansas City up front. There are a couple other things I wanted to get to and just, kind of going back to Sunday night too. The thing that stands out about Philly, obviously they're back in the Super Bowl 2 years later. There's a lot of different parts to their roster than was there just a couple of years ago. And I think what I've always respected about Howie Roseman is he is always attacking needs on their roster. And it's low-hanging fruit, but it's polar opposite from what you have here in Indy. They don't rest. They don't run it back. They don't rely on continuity. Sure, they're great in the trenches, but look at their perimeter players. I mean, they got the best wideout group in the NFL, right? Best group of pass catchers probably in the NFL. Look at the secondary attention that they gave this offseason of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Obviously, what they did with Barkley, and certainly they have a top 10 quarterback. But I think that's what I really, really respect is they have never been a franchise, especially under Howie Roseman, that has sat there and just kicked their feet up in the offseason. They have always tried to, and it obviously hasn't always worked out, but when it doesn't work out, boom, they're trading Hassan Reddick for a middle-round pick, and now you look at their draft class this year, and they've got a bunch of draft picks that they have at their disposal too, which you don't usually think a Super Bowl team would have. So their ability from a roster construction to just always attack, never think, we'll Band-Aid that bullet wound. Well, no, that's probably not the best mode of operation. I think that is beyond commendable and honestly probably why Howie Roseman deserves MVP more than anybody.
Yeah, he looked pretty elated in that locker room. And I'm always curious about this. I want to cover a Super Bowl locker room. Like, what the heck do you even report? All I see is guys just yelling and being very inebriated, and it just looks like a lot of fun, but I'm just like, okay, what do you actually get out of that? And to go back to your point, Kevin, about draftees and players that they brought in, one of my buddies, Alec Lewis at The Athletic, listed out some of the guys that they've drafted who won the Super Bowl with them this past year. You got Cooper DeJean, obviously, Quinyon Mitchell. You got Landon Dickerson, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter. Like, this isn't one or two guys. These are a lot of players. I mean, you relied on 2 rookie cornerbacks in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes, and it worked. You hit on those guys. And so I had somebody ask me the other day on Twitter, like, man, is Ballard's philosophy flawed if he wants to build in the trenches? And we see what the trenches did in that game. And it's like, not necessarily, but it's the other stuff on top of it too. And it's obviously hitting on your guys. I mean, how many draft picks can you say the Colts really hit on, particularly on defense, in recent years? Like, there just haven't been enough playmakers for them to really hang their hat on.
Yeah, and another thing too is just like, and this maybe falls a little bit more to the Nick Sirianni bucket, but I also think it's thoroughly impressive. Like, they lost Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon as their 2 coordinators. And then, now, these were firings, but, like, they lost their coordinators last year. I mean, again, they've had new coordinators now for back-to-back off seasons. And I find it a bit fitting that, you know, this time last year, James, we had just gotten done with the Chris Ballard press conference. And, you know, I don't want to speak for you, but I certainly was surprised that the Gus Bradley thing was just so quickly swept under the rug. Of like, yeah, 29th in points, you know, that's on me, blah, 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 this and that. And it just didn't seem like a very big topic for the Colts.
Right.
The Eagles, they were 30th in points allowed last season. Now I'm going back to 2023. So right there with the Colts, 29th and 30th. And what do the Eagles do? They bring in Vic Fangio. They spend their first 3 draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. They go out and they get, you know, a Zach Bond, and you see what he does to add some competition. You know, the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson thing. I mean, like, they go out and they're like, no. First off, schematically, we need to change things. A year before they were in the Super Bowl, mind you. And then they come back and then they double down on it a little bit in free agency and then in the draft as well. And so, again, this kind of goes back to, yes, I guess it's the Sirianni thing a little bit, but maybe more so I should have said Howie Roseman of they had a weakness for 1 year. You know, like, people could chalk that up to blip on the radar. And yet they're not going to sit there and say, hey, we're going to take no chances. We feel like there are issues. We're going to attack it. They do that. What do the Colts do? They run it back with Gus Bradley. They don't make a single free agent acquisition. Yes, they draft Latu, but nothing else from a premium pick standpoint. And what happens? They don't make any incremental improvements defensively. And now it's like the Colts wait too long. And honestly, I feel like there are some IU fans that feel that way right now with Mike Woodson. It's like, could you have gotten ahead of the game last year when Dusty May is sitting there? And yes, there would be some people that would push back on that. But the opportunities to, you know, kind of pounce on those situations, to, you know, get ahead of something that you think is inevitable, it's difficult, but I think it's why those people earn the big bucks. And it's certainly a huge reason why the Eagles are hoisting the Lombardi Trophy and why Jalen Hurts is waving to people in Disney World. Did you find how much money it is, Mark?
The only thing I found was that Phil Simms was paid $50,000 to do it the first time, and I don't know how much they get paid since.
Ooh, man.
So what year was that?
I don't know. What are we in? Super Bowl? Where does it say?
I never know these things.
I'm picturing like 82
Super
for
Bowl
Phil Simms.
21. So what? 1986, 87? 87, I think.
Yeah, because we're in the 50s now.
I mean, is that worth it?
You get a free trip to Disney.
So
a free trip to Disney. I mean, Mark. I mean, a free trip to Disney for you is different than a free trip to Disney for Jalen Hurts.
Well, I'm sure there's more. There's more than that. You're getting paid.
What, he gets to sit front row at Space Mountain?
Yeah, he was on the Tron ride. I saw him flying around on that roller coaster.
Yeah,
he gets a free flight at the World of Beer as he makes his way through there.
Then you get front of the line to meet all the princesses.
Well, look, KB, you got to remember, rich people stay rich by just accepting more money.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably not that hard. I mean, look, if someone told me, and you got to remember, they didn't up rich, so it's like, if someone tells me I can get $50K just for going and doing something silly, why
and
not?
Obviously, it's more than $50K.
Plus, I think
I would assume this time around.
Now it's
does he still do it on the field? Did he do like the I'm going to Disney World?
They had the commercial out yesterday. But yeah, you know,
it's just so funny to me.
You know how
I
many
was about to say,
kids,
when did KB become the Grinch?
You're a kid. You want to be an NFL quarterback. You're dreaming like one day I'm going to be the one that says I'm going to Disney World because I just won the Super Bowl and I'm the MVP.
There's your spin cycle. Okay, I got it now. I literally saw him on the float and I thought it was a stunt double. It didn't even look like there were that many people waiting for him.
Well, I mean, the line for Mickey Mouse is probably pretty long. Who's that guy? Oh, it's the Super Bowl MVP.
Parade coming up on Friday. A little Valentine's Day parade for the Eagles coming up on Friday. Busy night of hoops. Rick Carlisle going to join us here in a little over 10 minutes. Again, the Pacers haven't lost back-to-back since after Christmas. That's what they will try to avoid. The winner of tonight is the head-to-head season series winner, Pacers and Knicks. Slight underdog, Indiana. The Knicks have gotten their act together. That was a slow start. I know OG Anunoby's been banged up, but they have been playing a little bit better here of late. And again, we'll see about the Miles Turner availability. He is questionable tonight due to a neck injury. Slow starts. Do you chalk that up to they've been in a million time zones over the last couple weeks, stick with this starting five? Or do you chalk it up to, no, you need some personnel changes?
I will say the time zones probably got him a little bit because that's just reality of the the NBA at this point in the season, especially in the dog days of the season. However, I'm looking at a guy like Tyrese where it's like this is when you have to be the tone setter and you kind of have to give your team that giddy up that they might not have because you are the leader. Not saying that he has been playing like some terrible brand of basketball, but, I think sometimes with this team, they kind of go as he goes, especially early on. So every now and then you can kind of tell, like, is this a game where Tyrese is going to be fully locked in or fully engaged or, committed to being sort of a disruptor to whatever defensive game plan is being used against him, or is he just kind of, going to defer and let other guys kind of get going? So sometimes those slow starts can kind of start with the point guard, not to put it all on him, but obviously there is, I think, some truth there to him kind of giving them that energy that they need to go out there and compete at the highest level.
Again, if you look at New York, they're right now third in the East. I mean, it's probably a long shot the Pacers would catch them from a standing standpoint. I think right now the Pacers, you look a little bit more at, can you stave off the Bucks right there at 5? Did Milwaukee win last night? I know they didn't have.
No, they did not.
They lost, so it's 1.5, I think it is now. Again, Giannis out post All-Star break, so these two teams, Pacers and Bucks, will see each other coming up in a month, and that'll obviously be pivotal in kind of deciding exactly who gets home court because right now that's where it's trending towards for a first-round series here.
I would love that.
Pacers and Bucks. Those would be some fireworks, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we'd have Giannis yelling about the basketball. We'd have Tyrese, wearing his Pumas and letting everybody know that he probably has the best sneaker of anybody on the court and things like that. But in all seriousness, I like the chippiness. I like how they argue. I like that they don't like each other. And I feel like it's like that with a few teams with the Pacers now, where it's them and the Pistons, it's them and the Knicks, where you just don't like each other. And I think that's good for the league and good for them. And obviously with the Pacers knocking out some of these teams in last year's postseason, there's going to be some bad blood there because you took my opportunity away. It's kind of how I look at it.
Ben is trying to compare the tradition of going to Disney as drinking milk after winning the Indy 500. I mean,
I don't know. That might be
I don't know,
a
that's apples
little
to apples,
bit of
Ben.
a stretch because
Getting
you can
on a plane and having to go to Disney World?
Yeah, that might be a little bit of a
A
stretch.
little different than just heading over to Victory Lane and taking one swig of milk and then dumping it on your team.
You know what?
I'm going to Disney World.
After achieving a lifelong dream of trying to be the best that I can be and to celebrate what we've been able to accomplish here, it means everything.
He's like,
So stick it, Kevin.
He's like, do I have to say that word for word? He's like, could we have not have voted for Josh Sweat for MVP?
He looks happy to be there.
Could I pass this along to the Sirianni family with all their kids?
Oh my goodness. I mean,
Kevin would win the Super Bowl and want to go to like a Notre Dame basketball training camp.
Sounds awesome. At Boston College. At Boston College
oh
tomorrow
yeah,
night.
that sounds ridiculous.
We
but
need the season sweep. It'll be a
very
late
on
one
brand.
tomorrow night for
Very
the
on
Irish. Someone brought up comparing what the Fever have done to the Rams with Stafford. I can kind of see where they're coming with that. But again, the big difference, James, they're paying Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark pennies compared to what they've given. I mean, this is how rookie contracts work in virtually all pro sports.
Yeah.
But like if you look at where Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark, their contractual value is compared to the rest of the team. I mean, again, these are 12 women rosters? I mean,
it looked like it might even be 11 for the Fever going into the season.
And they're like 6th and 7th on the roster, and yet you'd put them, certainly last year, obviously players 1 and 2. So I think it's a little bit more like the rookie contract NFL team, and obviously the quarterback in Caitlin's case has been absolute stuff. I mean, Caitlin was, a top 5 player in the league last year, top 3 player in the league, however you want to look at it. But then they're able with the CBA, I think the ability to find these kind of 1-year contracts has been a big deal. Does Bonner rethink it if it's a new CBA and she can cash in on a 3-year deal somewhere and kind of ride off into the sunset? I think that would be kind of an interesting part to it. Would you put them in the bucket with the Liberty and the Lynx and the Aces? Are they there? Are they on that tier?
I'll say no for now, mainly because of the experience. I get it. On paper, and DeWanna Bonner talked about this yesterday, on paper they look amazing. But you got to go out there and produce and kind of prove it at this point. So I would say that's obviously their goal.
So you don't go with like finals or bust?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I know that might be the case for a lot of people, and obviously with DeWanna Bonner's comments yesterday about wanting to win a championship, obviously Caitlin Clark's urge to win a championship, the excitement around here, that is the goal. But I don't think you can look at this team and say if they get bounced in the second round and lose in the 5th game or whatever and say that they had a failed season or whatever. I think that would be a little bit hyperbolic, but that kind of, is the case. And the one thing I'll say that's interesting, and I thought DeWanna kind of hit on it really well, was, she said we don't really see a lot of rookies come in and perform like Caitlin has. And she's like, that is insane. And so to me, it's not just that Caitlin's on this cheap contract, they're building around her, all those things. It's that championship women want to come play with you after seeing just 1 year of you. That was enough to sell them on. And obviously, there's other factors. Stephanie White was her coach in Connecticut as well, and she knows Amber Cox from, her Phoenix days. But basketball-wise, on the court, you saw Caitlin Clark and said, I want to win, or I can win with that point guard. That says a lot about her.
Thank you, Fred. Inflation calculator. He's going with $138,000 today. So Jalen Hurts got $138,000.
I'm there.
To be a millionaire to ride roller coasters.
No. I want to be a millionaire plus.
Wave to little kids on the floats.
Fun story. Last year at the owners' meetings, speaking of Disney World, Stephen Holder mentioned that he was going to take his family after when he wrapped up with.
And you guys were in the Orlando area, right?
Yep. We were in the Orlando area. Last year was down there in Florida. I forget exactly where. Actually, no, it wasn't Orlando. And at the end of our little meeting with Ballard, he goes, yeah, take James with you. I'm like, man, what is this? And I just want to say on the record, Stephen Holder of ESPN with his ESPN paycheck has not taken me to Disney World. So
you sound bitter.
I am. I'm very bitter about this. So again, Jalen Hurts, congrats to you, young man, on going to Disney World.
James
because
trying
I
to
would
be the
go
+1 for Jalen Hurts here.
Doesn't Steven get free passes to Disney since he's technically a Disney
I'm
employee?
telling you, man, he's freezing me out.
Free, but he definitely gets some nice reductions on that. Rick Carlisle going to join us next. This is the Fan Morning Show. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
It is a Tuesday. It is 8 o'clock, and you know what that means. Ahead of their final home game of the, I always say first half of the season. It's more like 2/3 or whatever the exact math is on the NBA season before they head to the All-Star break. Pacers-Knicks coming up tonight, 7:30 TNT, and the head coach of the Pacers joins us now. Good morning, Rick Carlisle. It's Kevin Bowe and James Boyd here on this Tuesday morning. Good morning to you.
Yeah, hey, James Boyd. Coming over to the honest side of the business here?
Something like that. You know, I'm just trying to get in where I fit in, Rick.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, that was very spot on. James Boyd said during the break, I know Rick's going to take a jab at me, and he certainly did right out of the gate.
It was a very minor one.
Yeah, well, you know, body blows are body blows. Coach, if we could maybe put a bow tie on our conversation last week at the time, it was still prior to the trade deadline, you said don't expect any moves. That's pretty much what happened for your team. What was the final decision in wanting to kind of see the season play out with pretty much the same core from last year?
Well, I think you look at the last month and a half, and things have gone in a good direction. And you know, this year has had just about everything. It's had problems with injuries. You know, 3 of our main glue guys out for a long period of time, well documented. You know, as I go back and look at games from earlier in the year when we were having struggles, you know, you look out there and you see we're starting Quentin Jackson, who's a two-way. We got Enrique Freeman playing, who's a two-way. We got Furphy in the rotation and stuff like that. And as we've gotten healthier, with Shepard back, with Neesmith back, and of course with Nembhard back, it's really helped us. Schedule's gotten more favorable since December, when it was pretty crazy, you know, with all the road games and not very much spacing. And then you know, in January we didn't have any back-to-backs, which helped us. And so, you know, as we go in the last 2 games before the break, you know, this is a tough one. This is, you know, New York tonight on national TV at 7:30, which is a later game. I guess it's on TNT, and then you know, a difficult back-to-back tomorrow night in Washington. And Washington's, you know, has not won a lot of games, but they're not fun to play because they are young, they go hard, and they have veterans mixed in who are playing well. In fact, I watched their game last night. They set a franchise record, the only time in their franchise history. They said this on the air, so I believe it's true. All 9 players that played scored in double figures. And so, you know, they have a lot of energy, and there'll be a lot to deal with there.
Rick, I know you mentioned the injuries early on in the season. What was it like, or what is the balance of like treading water, staying afloat versus trying to get better? Because you know, obviously you want to be peaking or trying to gain some ground or gain some continuity as the season goes on.
Well, every day I'm trying to get a little better. That's the way I look at it all the time. Even when you're not having turbulent times with upheaval, whether it's injuries or you know, other issues. And so that's been the approach the whole time. I expected this to be a very difficult year, especially coming after some unexpected success in the playoffs last year. And you know, when you're developing a young team into a young veteran team, you know, one of the things you got to learn about is how to deal with winning. And so, part of our struggles fell on that probably a little bit too. And then, you know, I'm reluctant to get into a big diatribe about, you know, everything that happened back in, you know, October, November, and early December. You know, this is, you know, we're now in February, and we've got to be a forward-thinking group. So, you know, right now we're not sure what Miles Turner's status will be for tonight or tomorrow. He has not been ruled through the league protocols as having a concussion at this time, and he's made some gradual progress each day. And as I think I mentioned yesterday, after practice, we're not in a position to say that he will not play either tonight or tomorrow. That said, we're not in a position to say that he's going to play either. So if that's the case, if he doesn't play, then we'll be leaning heavily on IU products. Thomas Bryant, who's done very good work for us, and we're going to have to work really hard in two areas where we've really struggled, particularly in the last 4 games, and that's transition defense and rebounding. We're in the middle of the pack to even a little better than that in both of those areas, and the last 4 games we've fallen to either 29th or last in defensive rebounding and transition D. So we spent a lot of time on that yesterday, and I don't know how people ultimately view New York's team in terms of their style, but I look at stats of last 5 wins, last 5 losses, and last 5 wins they're scoring 22 in fast breaks, and the last 5 losses they're scoring 11, and so there's an 11-point difference, which is massive with transition. And so you say, well, where's their transition coming from? And it's Brunson, certainly. The other guy that is a very underrated player is Hart. And when they get it going the way they want to get it going, Hart in transition going coast to coast is a very big problem. So we got to deal with him.
Certainly saw that last year in the playoff series. Rick Carlisle with us here again. TNT exclusive tonight, 7:30. Pacers and Knicks. The winner is the season series winner of this matchup. So far, teams have split on their respective home floors. Coach, the slow starts out west. You mentioned transition defense, rebounding. Do you point to those two things specifically for the slow starts as well?
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff has been a problem, and I think we got outscored in the first quarters by an average of 15 points. I think it was 36-21. And look, when you go out west, I mean, you're a long way from home. And, I learned this my first year as a head coach when I was with Detroit. We got off to a very good start. I think we were 14-6, and we went out west and we lost all 5 games. And, until you go through it and deal with the travel and deal with everything that comes with that kind of difficulty, difficult arenas, challenges with crowd noise, officiating, like we played at the Clippers last Thursday, and this arena is just absolutely unbelievable place. I mean, I can't even begin to describe the circular video board that they have. It's the technology, I'm almost certain, is the same as the Sphere. And I don't know if you guys have seen the Sphere, but there's a video aspect to it that is unlike anything I've ever seen in an NBA arena. And each seat is wired and has, push button things, and the crowd can constantly react to what's going on in the game, et cetera, et cetera. But beyond that, as you face, the basket in front of our bench, it has a very steep incline, and to sit in that area, you have to be a launch, stick type Clipper fan, and you got to be willing to, go crazy during free throws and stuff like that. The other side is more of a regular configuration of an arena. So
didn't you flip baskets because of that?
We did, and so that's something we haven't done on the road. And look, that was a game where we're down 20 or 22 in the first quarter, and really had a miracle comeback to get in position to actually have a lead at halftime. Ran the lead up to 10 or 12 in the third, lost the lead going into the fourth, and it was a merry-go-round. But Tyrese and Pascal were great down the stretch, and we made plays, and we got out of there with a win. But anyway, that's an example of some of the stuff that you can deal with when you're a very long way from home.
One last item on the slow starts for me. Do you look at it as something you need to tweak starting lineup-wise, or do you think, no, let's stick with this group, just have to be better, I guess?
Well, you know very well that I don't talk about lineup things until 30 minutes before the game. So if that was something I thought was the right thing to do, it would be announced at that time.
Swing and a miss right there. Is what
Hey, he's a veteran.
got to swing, right?
Exactly. Rick, I know you mentioned the All-Star break coming up, and obviously you have an All-Star in Pascal Siakam. So when it comes to stabilizing things, being steady, how much has he meant to this group? And not only from a play standpoint, but just his personality. I feel like with the interactions I've had with him, the few that I've had, the ones I've seen, he seems pretty even and kind of happy-go-lucky about his life and his career and what he's accomplished.
Well, he's been phenomenally great this year, and he does it in, as you mentioned, a very understated way, and so this is something that coaches recognize, and those guys, the guys around the Eastern Conference who did the voting, made a very, very wise choice. Now, that said, I got to say this. Pascal's had a great year. We have two All-Stars. We have another one in Tyrese that just simply didn't make it due to numbers. But we've got two guys that are deserving of being on the All-Star team. Pascal, has been super consistent, from top to bottom. He's developed a voice with the team that is a strong voice, but he's also developed a great knack for when to use it. And all these things have contributed to him having a really phenomenal year and a half with us so far.
Seeing Siakam shoot a career high from 3 at this stage of his career, what do you think that says about just his willingness or his thirst to try to get better? Because, you don't see most guys shoot 41% from 3 in year 9 and, continue to add things to their game.
Well, this is a great question. And, last summer, I guess it was the spring technically, but, we went down to Orlando to recruit Pascal to come back. He has a home in Orlando. He's building a brand new home. And as the construction unfolds down there, the gym he built it's not a full-size NBA court, but it's not far from being a full-size NBA court as part of the construction of this, new estate that he's building. And so went down with Kevin, Chad. I think Lloyd Pierce came down with us too. And, I went to his facility, and the day I was there, he was working out he's got a couple of trainers, David Thorpe, who also worked with Andrew Nembhard in the summertime, and actually Thomas Bryant too, coincidentally, and then quite a few other NBA players. And over the years, he's done a great job working with guys. And I met with them on the court, and I talked to them about just devoting, I don't know what the amount of time was going to be every day as they did workouts. Maybe it was 10 minutes, maybe it was 15, 12. I don't know. Just to the boring rote repetition of shooting 3-point shots, because the way that people play Pascal, because he's such a great driver, he can almost always get that space, to jab a little bit and even rise right up if he wants to. And so if you remember early in the year, and look, he put all the work in and came back and took the 3-point shooting to another level. And if you remember in the game we played against Boston early in the year, the game ended up going to overtime, but the shot that was the decisive shot that won the game for us was him at the top, taking a little bit of a jab behind the 3-point line, and rising up and swishing one, which put us up 3, and then we were able to get a stop, and we won the game. So his 3-point shooting has been massively important to us. And the Clipper game was probably the best example, because when we were buried in the first quarter, he came out in the second quarter and made 3 or 4 threes. And then down the stretch, you guys probably remember if you saw the game, or it was probably on the highlights, he had a 3 late in the fourth. It hit the front of the rim, hung on the rim, hit the front of the rim, moved around, hit the back. It was very, very soft, and it eventually fell in, I think, to give us a 4 or 5 point lead at a decisive time in crunch time. And so, his long range shooting has been, a big part of our resurgence, and certainly, early in the year when we were struggling to get wins.
Yeah, it was a huge sequence there. Halliburton, I think, hit that 3 to give you the lead, and you guys were able to make the plays the rest of the way. Rick Carlisle with us again tonight. Pacers Knicks 7:30 over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I meant to ask you this last week, Coach. Brought the family to the Hawks game a few weeks ago, and we're sitting there watching pregame stuff, and you're getting ready to do the final huddle, and you got the whiteboard out, you're writing something down, and my wife says to me, I wonder what he's jotting down on the whiteboard. If you could, what do you jot down there right before the game starts? Like, are you literally drawing a play? Is it like more keys to the game? What are your final instructions, if you will?
Well, over the last several years, one of the things that I've done is whoever has the scout for the game is the person that can draw up the opening play. So a lot of times you'll see that one of the assistant coaches will have the board. So Mike Weiner and Jim Boylan are the 2 guys that do the scouts. And so, Mike sometimes will do it. Jim does it occasionally. Sometimes he'll turn it over to Jenny Busick, who'll do it. Had Lloyd do it once or twice this year. But, Lloyd does the offense, but it's something that I've had the guys doing the scouts do. There are some nights when we just say, look, we're not running a play. You guys go out and play basketball, get it moving, get it to the paint, and let's get a great shot. Some games, it's going to be a difficult thing to try to run a play because opening plays are a thing in the league that, every staff, tries to do. Generally, defensively, both teams are very geared up, especially on the first possession of the game. And while it's a great time to draw up something new and different that they haven't seen before, on the one hand, on the other hand, a lot of times these things get blown up because everybody's going so hard at the beginning of the game. So sometimes we'll just say, hey, go get something going. There was one period during the year this year where, I had Tyrese. I said, hey, Tyke, you come up with a play you like, talk to those guys about it, and you guys run it. And we had some success there for a bit. And then sometimes I just, we'll have a play that is just a base, one of our base plays that we're going to run. And sometimes I'll just write 3 keys, transition, rebound, something like that. Sometimes it'll be, just two singular words. And so what I found over the years is, if things are too much the same all the time, it can get boring. Guys can not have the same kind of focus, stuff like that. So we try to change it up a little bit. And so I'm not sure what I put on the board for the Atlanta game, but it could have been one of many things. And if I had the board and an assistant coach didn't have it, it was either me putting down some messaging or actually drawing a play.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Again, tonight, Pacers, Knicks inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Coach, we won't talk to you next week. All-Star break, visiting Abby. What's on the agenda here for All-Star break for you?
Yeah, we're gonna get together. Actually, in Dallas, we've got an event that's an event with her and some of her her high school close friends, and so should be pretty cool. We're looking forward to that, and you guys have a great break, and look forward to seeing you whenever it is, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever.
Love it, Coach. Good luck tonight. Thank you as always.
All right, thanks. Take care, James.
All right.
Rick Carlisle, Payless Liquors hotline. Maybe we'll tap into the starting lineup discussion. Should there be a change? Do that here upcoming. Rick Carlisle, that'll be up on the podcast again. Trying to have Jeff Rabjohns on at 9. I know he's a last-minute cancellation yesterday. Hopefully talk with him about all the drama around the IU program. It's a busy night. Drama. We need a 30 for 30. Those IU student media kids can start efforting that down there. A lot of hoops tonight. Mark Dykton, let's hit the morning check.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum, March 10th and 11th.
Well, James, sounds like we're unsure on Miles Turner. Is that the vibe you got walking out of that with Rick Carlisle?
Yeah, it sounds like it's one of those things where they'll know closer to game time, and obviously he's going to go through treatment and things like that. So we'll see, how he's feeling.
We'll await that. We'll play that audio upcoming if you missed that. Rick Carlisle on Miles Turner again. Slight underdog tonight, the Pacers. These two teams have split their home meetings, 7:30 TNT exclusive. Pacers and Knicks. Mentioned a little college hoopage as well. Let's start at 7 o'clock in Ann Arbor. That would be the Boilermakers of Purdue. What a big week upcoming for Matt Painter's bunch. Michigan tonight on the road. Home to Wisconsin later. A week from tonight, back in Michigan to take on Sparty. If you look at the Big Ten standings right now, 11-2 Purdue, 10-2 Michigan, 10-2 Michigan State. Obviously, these two teams met. I don't know how much you watched of that, James, a couple Fridays ago, but Purdue from the opening play. Braden Smith, steal, layup. They just dominated Michigan. 22 turnovers for Dusty May's bunch. Michigan has won 4 straight, though, since that game.
Yeah, they smacked them. I was watching that, and I was thinking, my goodness. And so,
they smacked them from the start.
Yeah, that's one of those games where you just impose your will. And obviously, in college athletics, really sports in general, you want to get your lick back, as they say. So, obviously, I would expect the Michigan Wolverines to be a little bit more locked in, a little bit more irritated, perhaps, or embarrassed about how things went the last time. And now they want to try to, one-up another rival in the Big Ten Conference. But we'll see. I think that Purdue has proven that wherever they play, they'll give you a tough game.
Does this make you feel old? IU's got Michigan State tonight. Did you see Jason Richardson's son was their leading scorer the other night?
I did feel a little bit old. I'm starting to
that
feel
makes me
like
feel
that.
really old, but I want to put it in your terms.
No, I think for me, I'm no longer in that, wow, I'd be like a rookie in the NBA if I were, this age or this good or whatever. Now it's like I turned 30 this year, which is still young. I mean, it's fine. But I'm no longer like I was in high school with this guy. No, I was not. So it is weird to see that. And he was balling. He had a crossover the other day, and I was like, "Ooh, Lord."
That was a big comeback over Oregon.
Yeah, big game.
For Michigan State. So Indiana, Michigan State tonight, East Lansing, 11.5-point underdog. Only other items I have, Tiger Woods, with the death of his mother last week, he has announced that he is not ready to make his 2025 debut at Torrey Pines. Certainly, of course, it has a lot of memories for him. He was scheduled to play. He made that announcement yesterday. And, James, I know you stayed up late last night. A little Luka action. Your thoughts on Luka's debut?
It was solid. I mean, they were playing the Utah Jazz, who are terrible. But I think that he looked like he made life easier on a lot of different players. And I think that is probably the biggest thing he'll bring. Obviously, the scoring and things like that. But man, the amount of open shots that him and LeBron can generate for these guys. I mean, if you're a role player on the Lakers, you got to be thinking, if it's a contract year especially, I can get paid off these guys. They're going to make my life they're going to make me look a lot better than maybe what I actually am. And all I have to do is just make some shots and dunk the ball like Jackson Hayes and others. So we'll see how it goes. I know Luka's shot was a little bit off last night. Might be rusty. He hasn't played in about a month. But I think they're in a good spot. And the craziest part to me, Kevin, was just seeing the pep in LeBron's step. That man is playing like he wants to prove something. But again, like I said earlier, they don't have any height. So, I mean, unless him and Luka, which is possible, go nuclear in the postseason and they're just, mowing through teams, that's great. But you still probably need a little bit more reinforcement on the back end.
I mean, out west, I think you got to worry about that a little bit more than maybe you do out east.
Even OKC, though, they have bigs. They got some guys. Yeah. They got size.
And the ramifications off of that sounds like it'll impact the Pacers a little bit. We'll share that upcoming. Again, any starting lineup changes you would like, and still a couple Colts items to get to. That is James Boyd. I'm Kevin Bowen. Mark Dykton on the ones and twos. Fan Morning Show right here, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan. Thank you, as always, Rick Carlisle. I like the little jab he threw towards James Boyd there to lead things off. You covered Rick's first year back?
I believe so. Yep.
James Boyd, by the way, in here.
Tyrese's first
2 days.
half a season with the Pacers. Good times. Bad times for them, but good times now.
Yeah, certainly.
That was rough.
Quite the 180 since where it was there at the start. Again, Pacers Knicks coming up tonight. You think starting lineup changes? I mean, again, they had the slow starts out west. Very slow starts.
I'll say no.
Because they've stuck with this five for a while, and injuries have played into it, but they've stuck with the, Halliburton, Nembhard, Mathurin, Siakam, Turner. I think the obvious one, or at least the most popular one, would be Nesmith, right? Nesmith for Mathurin? Is that what people would say?
I think so, mainly because Matherin is kind of who he is regardless, and obviously his scoring punch would be nice to have off the bench. But if you're asking me, I think they probably stick with their lineup, TBD on Miles Turner, but 2 games left before the All-Star break. You have been playing really good basketball overall since the calendar year started, one of the best records in the NBA. So I just don't know how much you want to, play with that right before you go on a break where you're able to kind of reevaluate things at a deeper level, perhaps.
Well, and he said to us, transition defense and rebounding. Well, honestly, Matherin's been one of the best rebounders in the team this season. Now, transition defense, certainly Matherin, I think, lacks there. When you look back on the Western trip, if you really want to break down guys individually, Neesmith shot it very poorly out west. Nembhard was not his usual self the last couple of games. And really, Matherin was one of the few consistent guys out west. I mean, certainly against the Lakers, he's the only starter that scored in the first quarter. So, again, Rick was pretty coy on that. But as James said, Miles Turner, questionable with that neck injury. And did he say a little protocol? Was that concussion related?
He was saying that Miles is not in the protocol.
Got it. So it's all neck.
Yeah, so it's more of a, obviously that's better off for the team. He's probably just got some soreness going on.
And he did practice yesterday. So, again, Pacers Knicks tonight, at the Wizards tomorrow before they head out for their All-Star break. Jeff Rabjohns going to join us coming up at 9. We'll get the latest on the Indiana search with him. Again, I know we tried to get him on yesterday. Did IU ask Mike Woodson to resign? That's my first question for Rabby. That press release is one of the oddest things I've ever read, James.
It had no quotes from him.
It had no quotes from him. At one point, they said we're the leader. Mike Woodson has helped us be the leader in the transfer portal. What the hell does that mean? The leader in the transfer portal? Does that mean, like, money spent? It definitely doesn't mean, like, what they've won at Indiana. I was wildly confused by that. Indiana at Michigan State tonight, Purdue at Michigan. I want to get to this Tony Dungy audio. James, on our beat, the Colts beat, we saw on Thursday night, no Hall of Fame for Reggie Wayne, no Hall of Fame for Adam Vinatieri. Tony Dungy caught up with Anthony Calhoun down at the Super Bowl. Again, Dungy not only is in the Hall of Fame, Dungy's one of the voters. Dungy's one of, I think it's 49 of the voters. And just to refresh everybody's minds, again, the criteria has changed on the Hall of Fame voting. And I think the Colts, I would say Vinatieri, felt it specifically the most. It used to be you cut it down to these 15 finalists, then from 15 you go to 10, and 10 you go to 5, and you have these 5-person classes. I think we kind of got used to the 5-person class cycle. Well, they've changed it to 15 to 10 to 7, and then once you get to 7, James, if you and I were a voter, we can only vote for 5.
Right.
And those 5 have to have 80% of the vote to get in. Well, that gets really mathy for a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
And in years that you're going to have, like next year, for example, you will have guaranteed first balloters in Larry Fitzgerald, Adrian Peterson, and Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Aren't they going to get 100% of the 49-person vote? So where are any, next year could be a 3-person class.
I was looking at it like, is Reggie going to miss again? When I
Reggie
saw
will
the new,
unquestionably miss again.
And that's the part that's most frustrating. And I think, I was actually talking to Mike Chappell, the dean, about this because I'm in a group chat with him and a few other writers on the beat, and he's always very open about, wanting to give players their flowers, not just Colts players, but just in general. And he's like, man, how could a guy, beyond Reggie, how could a guy like Adam Vinatieri, who's the best at his position ever, as far as accolades, longevity, the kicks he made, and the moments that he had them, not be a first ballot Hall of Famer because of some weird new rule that you all have. And I get it. I definitely appreciate the thoroughness of the Football Hall of Fame compared to the Basketball Hall of Fame, which incorporates NBA and everything else. It seems like every guy who ever was good for 5 years is in. But, to only have 3 modern-era players, I was shocked by it. And honestly, Kevin, I didn't know the rules. I had to go back and read about it because I was like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, we did a poor job, speaking for us, in the show of not making sure that we went over those rules leading into the selection. Again, here was Tony Dungy. This was with Anthony Calhoun down at the Super Bowl on this year's Hall of Fame selection.
I'm a little surprised at that. I'm disappointed for those 2 guys, but I'm even more disappointed in the whole process. I'm one of the voters, and we sat there and voted. We had an all-day Zoom meeting, and we're trying to break things down and we're splitting hairs between 10 and 12 really, really gifted candidates, and we only elected 3 modern-day people into the hall. We were discussing 8 and 9 guys that should have gone in. So to have Adam Vinatieri and Reggie Wayne sitting there and not get in, and we only elected 3, to me it doesn't make sense.
Again, I think it was an absolute joke. Vinatieri doesn't make in. If Adam okay, let's compare Vinatieri next to Eric Allen at corner. Eric Allen is what, the 30th best corner in NFL history? Adam Vinatieri is the best kicker in NFL history and made clutch play after. Can you tell the history of the NFL without Adam Vinatieri? And it's twofold with Vinatieri. It's not only he's made the most field goals in NFL history, he's made the most field goals in postseason history. It's the clutch gene.
That's what I was saying. The Super Bowl weekend was his. That's where he made his money. Honestly,
in multiple years.
Yes, and if you look at the kicks that he made, he's made other people's career. I mean, not to be disrespectful, but like, where are some of the greatest quarterbacks
1,000%.
in our game if he doesn't make those kicks? How do we view
Where's
Tom
the Patriots
Brady?
Dynasty?
Yes.
With
How do
that
we view
Raiders
Tom
game
Brady?
in
How
the
do we
snow?
view Peyton Manning if he's not making some of these kicks to get you over the hump? And so it's frustrating. And I understand, again, you want to be diligent, but I think sometimes you can do yourself a disservice by not giving these guys their just due for being some of the best ever. And again, just going back to Reggie, I mean, I get it. He might not have had the career that other guys have had, but playoff success, which to me should, really be weighted when it comes to the best of the best, he's up there.
Agreed.
He's had big moments. He's had huge games. And why should he be punished because the Colts only won 1 Super Bowl during that era? Like, I mean, come on.
I think what hurts Reggie is he's not your typical flashy wideout on and off the field. He's not. I think that hurts him a bit. I think the fact that he's not this crazy 4.3 40-yard dash guy, he's not Calvin Johnson in size. He did it methodically. He did it. I would say Reggie was kind of a boring wideout. There are many times I'd watch a Colts game and be like, man, Reggie's got 9 for 104? I didn't realize that. That's kind of his game. Think about his strengths. Route running and catching the football. That's boring. That's not flashy. And I think that hurts him in name recognition when you also factor in how the national media views him, which I would disagree with. But to your point, the Marvin Harrison, Peyton Manning, et cetera, et cetera. And, you and I have had these conversations with Mike Chappell a ton in the media room. Chap, I think, was, and I don't think I'm telling secrets here, Chap was looking forward to this year because he had a little extra from Bill Belichick.
Right.
Belichick was long an admirer of Reggie Wayne.
Yeah.
Long. But
he went and played for him or tried to.
Yeah, exactly. At the end. And so, Chap went in there with a little, I think, just stories from Belichick specifically about Reggie and what he thought of him. And you would think the greatest coach in NFL history, that might carry some clout. And what happened? Reggie still didn't make the top 10. Top 10. So, when you got 15 finalists, Reggie didn't get to the top 10. So, walking into these next few years, Vinatieri, maybe. Reggie Wayne, no chance. I mean, he's got no chance to go in next year.
But you know what's...
And again, I disagree with the overall process. Like Tony Dungy said, to me, Vinatieri, I think Chap even mentioned it. He got like 77, 78% of the vote. I mean, he's right there. I mean, he's right there, but we're doing this weird math game, and I'm fine for, like, first ballot should mean something. Like, okay, I can get you there, but, like, the whole, Eric Allen's waited a long time. Well, then he should keep on waiting. First ballot matters, and Adam Vinatieri, to me, is a first ballot player.
Yeah, and the most frustrating part, and obviously I'm not in Reggie's shoes, but just from my media perspective is, okay, we're going to have the same conversation with Reggie in however many months when they cut down the list and we trot him out there on a Wednesday afternoon, because that's when assistant coaches speak every other Wednesday, and it's like, or every other Thursday, and it's like, hey, what do you think about becoming a finalist again? And he's going to say the classic thing. He's also going to have some fire because that's how Reggie is. He's not going to sugarcoat it too much. But at what point do you not care until you're just officially in? I mean, it's cool to be, a finalist. And he mentioned to Chap in one of the Chap stories that he wrote that if he wasn't a finalist, obviously that would be devastating. But it's almost like this sick joke where all right, you're going to tell me I'm pretty good, I should be considered, but I'm not really going to be considered or really make the cut. And one of the things I love about Reggie, he keeps it real. He was saying, yeah, I get punished because, these guys did more with less, but, like, it's not my fault that these guys sucked. he told us that. It's not my fault that your quarterback was Matt Schaub or whatever, if it's in reference to, Andre Johnson.
Yeah.
And that's not Reggie saying, that's me saying that. Right. He's just saying that I shouldn't be punished because these other guys were really good too. And to Reggie's point, Peyton Manning, with all due respect, did not make him great. Marvin Harrison did not make Reggie Wayne great. He was great on his own merit, his own hard work. And so it is, I can go on and on, but it's one of those things where you just wonder, how many guys will have to wait down the line because of this new rule on top of that.
And we got to get the all-Indiana parlay, what it would look like if we want to dip our toes into that again. I know some people are like, wait, you're making me jump in the deep end again. I'm not doing that. But we'll throw that at you and continue a little Colts conversation. James Boyd's got some draft names to keep an eye on.
Sir.
We'll hit on that upcoming. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton here on a Tuesday.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
It is a busy night of hoops. Thank you to Rick Carlisle. Earlier, shout out Jeff, easy for me to say, Jeff Rabjohns coming up in 15. He was last-minute cancellation for us. Yeah, thank you. For yesterday, we'll get to him coming up here at 9. Everybody's an underdog tonight. Slight underdogs. The Pacers and Purdue, Indiana, what you would expect, double-digit underdog against Michigan State. James Boyd in with us here the next 2 days. Pretty wild, James. 2 weeks from today, you and I will be at the Combine.
Yeah, it's always a fun time, but a very busy time. I get a lot of steps in, but I do enjoy being in the city of Indianapolis and kind of know my way around, so I know where to park and do things for a lot cheaper than when they jack the prices up and make all the money during that week.
Now, you had a story up on The Athletic here, what is it, maybe last week?
Yeah, last week.
Where you looked at 20 players, and I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but 20 players at positions that you kind of view as Colts needs.
Yeah.
And you would call those players like top 3 round guys?
Yeah, I would say top 3. Day 1 and day 2.
I was scrolling through it, and I thought one of the things that was interesting is you had tight end, and obviously Tyler Warren is the class of that. But you listed 4 of them, and I think as I've started to kind of go through more and more mock drafts, I'm reminded, like, wow, tight end is a deep position group.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some mocks that have had 3 or 4 in the second round. I've seen 2 in the first round. So I'm kind of curious that aspect of, I'm always a believer of, yes, you address your needs with premium picks, but at the same time, you've got to look at it like, how do you weigh draft depth?
Mm-hmm.
And will we see the Colts do that at tight end?
That's an interesting question, mainly because of who could be available.
Everyone's got the dream of Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
But if he goes 9 or 10, then do you sit back and say, hey, it's still a pretty good class to get to in the second or third round?
And that's my thing. I think when I do these exercises, the fans and readers, you all are great, but they're always like, no, we want this one player. And I'm like, that's not how it works. You have to have a contingency plan built in. And even then, here's my question for you, Kevin Bowen. You got Malachi Starks. You have Tyler Warren.
Yeah, Starks, a safety from Georgia, for those unfamiliar with him. Yeah, it's a great debate. There's so much of me that looks at it, James, and says, if you don't get Richardson right, you get nothing right. And
fair,
so that's
which
where
is
I'm
fair.
Probably at. Now, again, I don't necessarily view tight end like I would an impactful defender, but to me, Warren's not just a normal tight end.
That is true.
It almost seems like he's more than that. And where I do pause when you ask me that question is that Lou Anarumo's baby, safety? Is that his baby? If you look at it in Cincinnati, when they had success, he had safeties. When they didn't have success, they didn't have safeties.
Exactly. And so you can argue, hey, well, his success came from having veteran safeties. But the point is, there's going to be some discussions. And this thought that you're going to draft the next Brock Bowers in this draft class, I mean, I get it. Tyler Warren was fantastic at Penn State, but the likelihood of him turning into that type of player is slim to none. I mean, we saw a guy have an all-time great season and would have been Rookie of the Year if it hadn't been for Jaden Daniels' incredible season. So all that to say, I mean, I went through this exercise and thought, let me just list some options and be a little bit more realistic with how it could play out, because you just never know. So tight end, I went heavy on tight end. Running back, I think running back is seriously one that they could probably draft. I don't know if they're going to go out and sign some veteran running back to be a backup. I mean, you can find
how high for running back if you went in the draft?
In all seriousness, I put these there because I needed some names and they're pretty solid players. But I would say third round is probably the earliest I would pick a running back, mainly because you do have JT. He is a star. And you can find good guys. I mean, we've seen it happen in years past where you draft a guy in the fourth round and they're able to, give you a little oomph in your backfield, and you don't need to necessarily go and spend that money in free agency. And if you are, Chris Ballard, and you're changing your ways, you can spend that money elsewhere. So tight end, running back, like I said, offensive line was kind of a sneaky area group for me.
Yeah, you've got tackle here. And, you brought this up earlier in the show about Braden Smith. He is such a big domino this offseason.
Yeah.
And I think it's twofold. Obviously, Braden Smith, the personal issue that took him away from the team for a month plus. And then if he still wants to continue to play, that is a big old cap hit for him at the age of, 29, I want to say, something like that.
Yep. 28, I think. But, yeah, he's going to be turning 29 soon.
Do you say, hey, we traded up for Matt Gonzalez in round 3? Hey, Matt Gonzalez started a right tackle for whatever he did, half dozen games this past season.
Mm-hmm.
We liked what we saw. He's making, $18 million less than Braden Smith. We can use that money elsewhere. That question, I don't think there are a lot of in-house questions for the Colts this offseason. I think their free agent class is one of the weakest I've seen in recent years. That, I think, might be the biggest individual personnel question. So, tackle, you have it on here, which I understand why you do, but I almost look at it and say, well, if they think Gonzalez is ready, would they stay away from tackle early in the draft? Now you're putting a ton of eggs in his second year basket.
I was going to say, that's probably why I kind of went the route that I did.
I think is just a huge question. Braden Smith situation, if he wants to come back, do they look... They've never done this in the Ballard era. They've really never eaten money and, opened up some, present money and eaten a little bit on the back end. He would be in a contract year. Are you passing the torch at center and are you passing the torch at right tackle? Those two questions are huge.
I will say, just to put the numbers out there for people, because I had to do an exercise on this. I have a piece coming out pretty soon, actually, on potential cap casualties for the Colts. So look out for that later this week. But one of them, obviously, will be Braden Smith. And aside from the personal issues that he's dealt with, I think he was going to be a guy who was kind of on the chopping block, regardless of how the season went. Unless he played at an all-pro level, this was probably going to be potentially his last season in Indianapolis just because of the money. And you look at the numbers, if you cut him, you end up with $3 million in dead money, which is basically what you still have to pay the guy, and you have to carry on your books, versus the $16.8 million you would save. That is a ton of money. When there's a $13 million difference, that usually means that guy is playing his last game for that team, unless they restructure his deal. But I don't know how much you want to do that because of, the ongoing personal issue. Aside from that, though, he was a guy who, had been playing through a couple of injuries and might, be a little bit older than his 28-year-old body might suggest.
Yeah, he had been... Yes, he has played through injuries. Weirdly, he had been relatively healthy until the personal
he played every game.
Situation
Started
this season.
every game.
I think he played every snap.
It was 12,
very, very close to it. So, I think the thing that's interesting in particular about the numbers you just laid out there, you said it would open up, what was it?
About $16 million.
$16 million. You would open up $16 million, and yet I don't think that $16 million would go to that position. Sometimes you see teams that move on from these guys, but then they just take that money and spend it still at that spot. That would open up cap space to use elsewhere because, again, Matt Gonzalez, the rookie out of Pitt, who they drafted in the 3rd round last year, theoretically, you would then give the starting keys to him. So, again, this is a part of the Colts offseason we have not seen them explore at all, really, in the 8 years of Ballard. Do we see that happen this year? So, when I looked at your draft list, tight end, I obviously nodded my head at. You had both cornerback and safety. Certainly not in my head there. I like you said round 3 at the earliest for running back. I kind of like it in that, very close to that, like the 4-5 range. And I think more of a pass-catching running back if I had to pick a specific skill set. Offensive tackle, though, is obviously it's a huge Ballard priority, and I still think some depth is needed. But that is one where you could open up money for elsewhere on your roster.
Absolutely. And, again, it's not a perfect science when it comes to drafting players or building your roster through the draft. However, I think identifying the certain positions was kind of my thought process. Like, let me figure out what positions are the ones that should pique your interest. And if guys, certain guys drop, do you take a swing on a guy like, Travion Henderson if he, isn't going as high as projected or whatever the case may be? Like, he's a guy who could be a dynamic running back for you, a guy that can catch a pass out the field. I mean, we saw, him have a huge moment.
Against Texas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of plays that you kind of want out of a guy like that. And then, to kind of put a button on this as far as different players. Linebacker was another group that I had. And I think that's one where is all the things we criticize Chris Ballard for, he drafts good linebackers.
Historically well.
And I would expect them to try to do that again because I would not expect EJ Speed to come back. Mainly because this isn't like some reporting thing. It's just me kind of, using what I would believe to be some estimated guess, he didn't have a great season. He's going to be 30 this upcoming season. Do you just go cheaper and get somebody who could be a better, rangier linebacker that perhaps complements Zaire Franklin a lot more than him? And so Jalen Walker from Georgia, Jahad Campbell from Alabama were two guys that I mentioned. Then I also had D tackle on here, Omar Norman-Lott from Tennessee. And I know people are like, what are you doing? A defensive tackle? That's so dumb. But again, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, as I wrote my story, they're not going to be here forever. And so if you draft a guy, 3rd round, 4th round, whatever the round is, to kind of give you some depth, I think that would be pretty smart because, as we know, you cannot win without the trenches. So it might not be the sexy pick, but you got to think about it.
Fingers crossed. We tried for Jeff Rabjohns yesterday. I know he's a busy man traveling up to East Lansing. So hope to chat with him coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. That was James Boyd. I'm Kevin Bowen. Mark Dykton with us here. This is the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan. Well, 12 hours from now, IU fans, inject the coffee, I guess if you'd like, although it's a ranked opponent, and you kind of know how this has gone over the last couple of years. It's Indiana-Michigan State, 11.5-point underdog. And to talk more about that, a man that has been very, very busy here over the last couple of days, and Peegs.com for your latest. He is Jeff Rabjohns. Jeff, good morning to you. Kevin Bowen and James Boyd here on this Tuesday morning.
Good morning, gents. How we doing?
We are well. let's go back to the press release. I found it odd. I was looking for the Mike Woodson quote and scrolled and never found it. The leading the nation in the transfer portal line made me confused. Did they ask him to resign?
Yeah. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he was fired. I mean, people can phrase it however they want. I really don't care. Indiana University decided they're moving on, and that was that. And conversations were had. Some went okay, some didn't. And then it was basically, this is the way this is going to go. And IU, I give them credit. They tried to be very, very, very nice to, former IU great. I mean, even to the point of putting his college stats in there, for goodness sake. I looked at that and I was like, what? But anyway, yeah, no, this was call it what you want. Being fired, being dismissed, whatever. This is Indiana's choice to move on. And, Mike Woodson wasn't exactly thrilled with it, but realized once decisions are made, you got to move on. And, no quotes in the press release. Gets to the Michigan game after the game, comes in for the post-game presser. IU announces he will not be taking any questions about his future, the statement, or anything. Another, what? Really? So, anyway, this was one of those situations where university makes a decision. They're moving on. Coach doesn't like it, but decides, to play ball. So, he, at the time the decision was made, I think he had 8 games left. He's got $8 million left on his contract. So he's got $8 million to play ball and be nice for the next 8 games.
So you're saying it's only going to be 8 games, Jeff? No, Cinderella run to turn things around?
Well, I mean, they could. And for the players, that would be nice. It would. It'd be nice for some of those guys to be able to go out with at least making the NCAA tournament. But that's really, really, really difficult at this point with sitting there with only 2 quad 1 wins and with the teams that they have to play left. So I think it'd be really tough. Yeah.
In all seriousness, though, Jeff, being around this team, covering this team, knowing the history of this program, why do you think it looks the way it does at this point, especially, knowing they had some success, not too long ago with obviously some bigger name players and better players, but they paid for this team, they invested in this program, and it looks like, a team that doesn't belong on the Big Ten floor some nights.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it comes back to scheme. Woody's just, demand that they play 2 centers at the same time. And let's be honest, Malik Renew is a center. That's what he played in college, in high school. Montverde Academy did fantastic at the position. And then Woody goes out and gets Umar Abalos. You got 2 guys who, if your primary scoring spot is catching the ball on the block, you are a center. So I use playing 2 centers at the same time. 2 guys who don't go out and make threes. 2 guys who don't handle the ball and pass and move on the perimeter. So part of it's scheme. And part of it is, I don't know if the pieces fit together all that well. And I think you have to actually ask questions about player development, because you've got Miles Rice, who was better before he got to IU. Rick Carlisle was better before he got to IU. You've got Tamar Bates, leaves IU, goes to Missouri, key player on the nationally ranked Missouri team. So Tamar Bates is better after he left IU. C.J. Gunn goes to DePaul. He was the leading scorer a week or 2 back when they won a Big East road game for the first time in years, winning at Georgetown. He's been a double-figure scorer in multiple games. So C.J. Gunn, better after he leaves IU. Why? Those are real questions to ask. So I think a lot of it's just scheme. And what he's even said on, at times, I mean, he said this on his radio show last year, the year before, 2s are just as good as 3s. And it's like, no. All of us took math in 2nd grade. No. I mean, And then he said, the game's still played inside out. Like, no, it's not. And it hasn't been for a long time. So I think there's just some things that just schematically, philosophically, just aren't ideal in today's college basketball. And I think that's why you see some of the metrics being what they are. Mike Woodson's now 22 games below 500 in quad one games. And that's during a 3+ year stretch where he's had NBA players like Trace Jackson-Davis, Khalil Ware, Jalen Hood-Schifino. Mike Woodson's now winless against ranked teams without Trace Jackson-Davis. Those are pretty telling stats. So I think, you just kind of look at tactics and philosophy, and I think that answers a lot.
It's the voice of Jeff Rabjohns. Again, been a busy man. Peaks.com, where you can find his work. Indiana, Michigan State, tonight, 9 o'clock from East Lansing. Rabbi, obviously Kentucky and Louisville will always hold kind of a close place to whatever, a program of comparison, if you will, to Indiana. Geographically, some fan base, historical rivalry, however you want to define it. They both had coaching searches last year, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Mark Pope and Pat Kelsey were necessarily options 1 or 2. Do you see Indiana having to get as far down the list as those two programs got? How do you look at it similarity-wise or difference-wise with those two?
Sure, that's a really good question. Obviously, there's one name that came up last year with Louisville, and is obviously a key possibility for Indiana in Dusty May, current head coach, University of Michigan. Louisville made a big run at Dusty May. At one point in time, they thought they were going to get him, and he decided that that wasn't the right fit for him, and a little while later picked the Michigan job. So right now, the two names, the two people that Indiana wants to call first, plans to call first, is going to call first, however you want to phrase it, Brad Stevens and Dusty May. And, we'll see what Brad Stevens, decides. Obviously, he's president of basketball operations for Boston Celtics, reigning world champs, team with a chance to repeat. Everybody knows his situation. So we'll find out, here in a week or two, somewhere around that general range, whether Brad Stevens has interest or not. He may have interest in having the conversation. He may, because he grew up an IU fan and his dad played football and all there, have the meeting, have the conversation, and say, guys, appreciate it. I want you guys to do well, but I'm staying here. Here's some things I think that might help you. Who knows how it's going to go? Nobody can predict that because nobody can sit here and say they're 100% sure what Brad Stevens is thinking. So we'll see. But as far as is Indiana going to get down the list, it's always possible. And certainly this is an interesting situation because it was announced on February 8th that, okay, Indiana's moving on. Even though I've been able to find out over the last 24 hours, there were some, people who operate in the college basketball search world generally who had a pretty good idea about 24 hours before that. So there's going to be a lot of lead time. A lot of coaching announcements come somewhere around Final Four weekend, a little bit before, maybe a little bit after, but that's the time frame when a lot of college basketball business gets done. Because you have the convention, you've got agents, you've got coaches, you've got associates of associates, and all those kind of people in the city of the Final Four. So if that's the time frame, we're looking at 6 weeks, something like that, of a coaching search. Now, it could happen before that, and I think it's probably likely right now that it does happen before that. But, it could be that long. So 4 to 6 weeks for a coaching search is a pretty long time. So, yeah, there's a chance Indiana has some conversations and, moves on down the list. But I think they have good names up and down the list. So I like Scott Dolson's process. Obviously, we saw what Scott Dolson can do when he's allowed to handle a coaching search with the hiring of Kirk Cignetti, when Indiana doesn't have everybody and their mother trying to reach in and put their hand on the wheel. So I think it would behoove Indiana and everybody associated with Indiana and everybody who cares about Indiana to let Scott Dolson do his job because he's proven he can do his job well. So I think that's going to be really interesting. If some of the people who like to, swing their weight around, if they do that this time, or if they say, hey, Scott, you're the athletic director, go do your job.
When you say that right there, allowed to handle a coaching search, Do you think this time last year Scott Dolson wanted to bring Mike Woodson back, knowing that Dusty May was about to take another job?
That's a great question. I really think that I can't sit here and speak for Scott, but what I can say is this. I was told there were a number of people at Indiana who looked at the Mike Woodson tenure and went, we should move on because this isn't going anywhere. And that's the way a lot of really smart athletic directors, administrators, key personnel view coaches after 2-3 years. It's not what did you do in the past. It's basically comes down to this. Do we have high confidence that the person currently running the program is going to take us where we want to go? And if the answer is no, they cut the cord and move on. It's why you see like some SEC schools fire coaches who maybe had success a year ago or 2 years ago, but they realize it's not the guy moving forward. We've seen it several times. Auburn with Gene Chizik 2 years after Cam Newton wins the title. Ed Orgeron, LSU, year after winning a title. They realize, okay, the assistants had a lot to do with it or whatever. But the evaluation process is this guy the guy to take us forward to where we want to go? And near the end of year 3, there were people in and around IU who looked at Mike Woodson and went, this ain't the guy. This isn't going anywhere. He's not really out recruiting hard. He's just looking at guys who, are going to take big NIL checks. The system doesn't make any sense. The metrics are awful. And really smart people have figured out some stuff as far as the predicted metrics are pretty predictive. And by the way, the future is more important than the past when you're making coaching decisions. So, I can answer your question by saying, yes, there were people who wanted to move on. There were people who wanted to move on for specific reasons. They realized Mike Woodson's not the guy and this isn't going anywhere. And they also realized Dusty May, is a real dude. And he's I think the decision or the advice to move on from Mike Woodson, it was given before Dusty got to the Final Four. But obviously, once Dusty did that, the advice got stronger to Indiana. And even some people outside of Indiana said, guys, Dusty May, far better than Mike Woodson. You guys really need to think about the future of your program. But, Quinn Buckner and some other people said, no. We gave Archie Miller 4 years. Mike Woodson's one of our own. We're giving him 4 years. And then that was that. And it was obviously not an ideal situation for IU. Obviously, they can fix it if they get the right coach this time. But, yeah, they had a chance last year to make a move and didn't. And everybody in college basketball just looked at him and went, what are you guys doing? What are you guys thinking about? I mean, it was – you'd be surprised what some agents and most of other people had to say about, IU's decision to keep Mike Woodson. It was, let's just say it was not praised in any corner of the basketball world.
Dang. That is
yes,
very candid. Jeff, to follow up to that.
Was that too candid? Was that too much for morning radio?
Well, we appreciate the honesty.
I appreciate it. I was just like, man, if I'm looking for some
we'll
hope
let you know
or something.
What the 812 area code thinks of that, but you probably have already heard that.
I mean, it's rough. So to follow up, though, Jeff, in all seriousness, when it comes to Mike Woodson, I get it. This is his last year. But this statement, again, we didn't hear from him. We haven't heard from him. So when you anticipate that you will hear from the head coach of the program still for now and what he could possibly say? Because I get it. He is Indiana's own. He is a legend here when he was a player and all those things. But at some point, you have to face the music. So do you get any inkling of when that music – will be faced?
I don't know. It's not going to be tonight when we're all up in Michigan State, from what I was told. They didn't do it last home game. And I thought the last home game would have made a lot of sense because it's the first time he speaks after, Stamen goes out. So just, win or lose, it's already out that you're going to retire. And it just would have seemed smoother to just have him talk. And even
does it make it worse to drag it out? Not to cut you off, but does it make it worse?
100%. Let me ask you this: how in the world does it make it better? Because
great question.
There's still no words from Mike Woodson. And he can sit up there and he can frame it however he wants. He can talk about, he can talk about his past. He can talk about, however you want to say it. Hey, I love IU. I didn't quite get it done, but I want you to know I love IU. I wish the fans all best and all that stuff. Brad Daugherty did something kind of like that. When you remember Brad Daugherty had, I believe it was just 2 years and didn't work out at Carolina. And he had a tremendously graceful effort. Praised the fans. Said that I'm a Tar Heel for life. I'll be here cheering on whoever the next coach is, and all that stuff. I'm like, that's how you do it. But so now people, and then everybody knows, what he was pushed out. Let's call it that. I guess that's the phrase to use. So, okay, if you get pushed out, and Brad Daugherty was pushed out, certainly it was not his choice to leave those Carolinas. But either way, the situations are similar. It's an alum. Obviously, Woody was a better player than Brad Daugherty, but Brad Daugherty was not nothing as a player. Or Matt Daugherty. But you have former players, and they get pushed out, and okay, how do you handle it? And I just thought it would have made a lot of sense for Mike Woodson to talk after the Michigan game because he could talk about how much he loves IU and all those kind of things. But now, when he doesn't, no quote in the statement, people go, wait a minute, what's that mean? Then all of a sudden, he won't talk after a game. People go, wait a minute, what's that mean? It's like all you do is create more speculation and, other people's words fill the void. And, some head coaches get that. Like Rick Pitino's great with the media. He understands the more he talks, the more his words fill the story, the more his words drive the headline. And Woodson just kind of went into a cave this year. He did one pregame media availability after they played South Carolina, in November. And then he just got upset and just said, I'm not talking anymore. He would talk post-game, but he would talk post-game for, 4, 5, 6 minutes, and that was it. And Dusty May takes his Michigan team into the Assembly Hall, and he knows questions are coming. Everybody knows questions are coming. And I think he talked for around 20 minutes. And he didn't say, don't ask me about the Indiana job or anything. He handled questions from his beat writers very well, handled questions from those of us who cover Indiana, I thought very well. Obviously, he didn't say anything specific, but he handled the questions. I just thought Mike Woodson I think he's making it worse the less he talks. The longer time, the more time that passes, and Woodson says nothing, the more people are looking at it going, wait a minute, what's going on with Woody? Why isn't he talking? And you have the game on CBS, and the announcer talks about how Woody was hurt when people booed against Illinois. It hurt him to the core. Well, who was the CBS announcer? Spiro Deeds. Who's Spiro Deeds? Former broadcaster for the New York Knicks when Mike Woodson coached there. So obviously Woody's starting to whisper to his friends about things. And now it's kind of like, okay, what is going on here? And all it does is just raise more questions. And what does the internet do when it has questions and not answers? Comes up with conspiracy theories. So I just think it would, for any head coach, if you're an outgoing head coach, grab the situation, grab the microphone, and explain it. Or at least talk about it. Tell stories. You're the outgoing coach. And if you're Mike Woodson, you got a million stories. Tell stories. Go into Rick Pitino mode. Sometimes when Rick Pitino doesn't want to answer questions, he goes into story mode. But he's smart enough to know I can tell enough stories to fill your notebook, to fill the headlines, to give TV and radio, great sound bites, and boom, there you go. I filled the airways with what I want to say, and I think that's why I think that's a really a good move for head coaches a lot of the time, and I'm not too sure what exactly Woody feels he's accomplishing by going radio silent.
Jeff will end with this. Can't thank you enough for the time. I know you're super busy. Again, Jeff Rabjohns from Peegs with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. I'll give you two groups. Group A has got Dusty May. It's got Bruce Pearl. It's got Chris Beard. Group B's got everybody else. If you had to pick Group A or Group B right now, who would you pick?
Wait, who'd you put in Group A right now?
Group A, Dusty May, Bruce Pearl, Chris Beard. Group B is everybody else.
Oh, I think of Group A, Dusty's the only real candidate right now. Bruce isn't involved, and Chris Beard's previous behavior, shall we say, to put it diplomatically, Chris Beard's got a steep hill to climb. And, he had a steep hill to climb at other places. Remember, Louisville had an opening last year. Chris Beard tried to get out Ole Miss. Louisville wouldn't touch him. Michigan had an opening last year. Chris Beard tried to get involved. Michigan wouldn't touch him. It's a steep hill to climb. I'm not saying he can't climb it, but it's a steep hill. So I think Dusty May has a real chance to get the job. But if the group is Chris Beard, Bruce Pearl, Dusty May, and then the field, in that situation, based on odds, I would have to take the field. Although that's not to say Dusty May is a real candidate. But the other two, Bruce isn't involved, and Beard, there's a lot of people who are aware or believe, let me rephrase, the first time a 911 call is made might not be the only time an incident occurred. And as the great philosopher Forrest Gump once said, that's all I have to say about that.
Jeff Rabjohns, Pigs.com. Jeff, cannot thank you enough. Excellent stuff. I know the message boards have been hot, and you are putting out a lot of flame. So thank you. Safe travels up to East Lansing, and I look forward to some more conversations down the road.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great day.
That's Rabby. Jeff Rabjohns right there, Payless Liquors Hotline. James Boyd?
I know you mentioned that he's putting out fires. I don't know. I feel like he's rightfully putting more gasoline on this stuff to kind of bring some truth to light. Maybe more fire, more light.
It is.
I feel like Jeff Rabjohns was just Kendrick Lamar at the halftime show, just staring at the camera, smiling.
Yeah, seeing Mark's reaction in real time was funny. Got a bit wide-eyed there.
I appreciate the honesty and the candor because I don't think you get a lot of it from the top of the IU basketball program right now.
Nah.
And it's a toxic time. I think that's probably the easiest way to put it. And again, on the floor, 10 straight losses to ranked teams by an average of 14 points. It's both sides of it. We'll hit a morning check down on the other side. A couple things to look forward to the rest of the way. Thank you to Cluster Truck, $25 gift card coming your way. We went with the Super Bowl special. The Bowens did. We went a little game day tailgate special. It was excellent. A couple pizzas, chicken strips. We absolutely loved that. Again, Cluster Truck, $25 gift card coming your way for the pop quiz. We'll get to that All-Indiana parlay as well. Let's hit a morning check down on the other side. This is the Fan Morning Show. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton. Boy, a lot there from Jeff Rabjohns. We thank you for his time and his candor. I do want to hit on a couple topics off of that, James, here in a few minutes. We'll get to the all-Indiana parlay because it's a lot of underdogs. Certainly Indiana, the biggest one tonight, is it's a busy night for hoops. So we'll rearrange some things here. Pop quiz coming up in about 10. That will be a Cluster Truck gift card coming your way, along with Jiffy Lube oil change. But before all of that, let's do a quick morning check now.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by the Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. March starts here at the Corteva Coliseum, March 10th and 11th.
All right, it's Kevin Bowe and James Boyd and Mark Dighton here on this Tuesday morning. James, you and I caught up with Coach Carlisle earlier in the 8 o'clock hour. Sounds like Miles Turner's status up in the air. Here was Rick Carlisle on the neck injury to the Pacers center.
Right now we're not sure what Miles Turner's status will be for tonight or tomorrow. He has not been ruled through the league protocols as having a concussion at this time, and he's made some gradual progress each day. And as I think I mentioned yesterday, after practice, we're not in a position to say that he will not play either tonight or tomorrow. That said, we're not in a position to say that he's going to play either. So if that's the case, if he doesn't play, then we'll be leaning heavily on IU products. Thomas Bryant, who's done very good work for us.
IU hat night, I believe, over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. James, let's play out the hypothetical. Turner does play. Same starting lineup?
Same starting lineup. Go out there and win.
Rick was a little coy on that when we asked him any starting lineup changes. I bring that up because the slow starts were the theme out west on that Western road trip there.
And he told you to wait till pregame, Kevin Bowen.
He pretty much told me to shut the hell up. Is what he told me. Not the first time Rick Carlisle was indirectly told me that. Enjoyed the conversation with the coach. That'll be up on the podcast. Again, Purdue and Indiana tonight. Purdue a slight underdog. We'll see how Michigan responds. Probably a bigger game a huge game for Purdue, obviously, but like Michigan after how they got just absolutely boat raced in Mackey a couple weeks ago, how they respond. Huge turnover night for them as Purdue just absolutely dominated from the opening possession. Purdue, again, a little underdog. I think 2.5 is what I saw it open up at. And then Indiana and Michigan State from East Lansing. You and I were talking a little bit during the break. Michigan State, you like their balance and pretty long team as well. You're a fan of the Spartans' length?
I think they're a really exciting team. They can get up and down. And like I said, they can also junk the game up and make it just harder for you to succeed. So I don't expect this to be a very pleasant evening for anybody having to play against them. I know Mark is over. I'm trying to be like a little bit nice. I mean, I don't want to be doom and gloom and the sky is falling every single day on the show about IU basketball, but brother, I am not encouraged.
Pleasant, folks.
I am not encouraged.
The thing about Indiana's schedule, and they've got 3 quad 1 games in the next 3 games, all 3 of them, home to UCLA, home to Purdue. They are one good week away from all of a sudden being right there in the mix for an NCAA tournament spot. I'm not like holding my – we've said that for now the last month.
Yeah.
They've been in this situation. It's mid-major teams would dream of this. Other big conference teams would dream of this. The Big East of the world. The ACC is having a down year. They dream of it, and yet Indiana's not been able to take advantage at all. We'll make sure to get Mark's parlay coming up. And I know you watched a little bit of Luka last night, his first game in a month and a half. How'd the debut look?
Look pretty good. The shot will come. 3-point shot will definitely come. Didn't have his legs there, but I think the crowd reaction says it all. I was reading something this morning before I made it over to the station where they were saying that LeBron, who normally gets announced last, let it be Luka, kind of texted him and said, hey, do you want to go last this time for your first home game? And that meant a lot to him to kind of, have the fans shower him with that type of praise and go out there and finally play. I do think that we'll have to see more of him because honestly, they didn't even need him against a team like Utah. So, I think in Lakerland, they're just happy to have their next star because the LA people just always get what they want, don't they?
You want to know what it wasn't pleasant for was Mavericks fans last night. 'Cause not only did you see the Luka debut, but did you see
of them got tossed.
Did you see Dirk was sitting like courtside as well?
Yeah.
That's a double whammy.
Well,
I know.
and then they had some fans get tossed, right?
Yeah.
Now, was this for a fight in the stands or is this for signs?
I was reading the reports, and it was, from the Mavs, they put out a statement. They were just saying, like, citing some rule, this article, whatever, says whatever, and, it's according to the league conduct. So it felt like, to me, one of those things where the Mavs were just over-policing their fans and not allowing them to voice their very valid frustrations. You just traded away a top 5 player in the world who's 25 for a guy who, again, Anthony Davis in his own right is a top 10 player in the world, but he just got hurt. And then on top of that, you kick me out, and then we lose. We blow the lead. We lose against the Kings. I mean, it's all bad for the Mavericks right now.
He's not back. Bring him back. He's not back. Bring him back. He's not back.
That's our chant of the year so far. We're a month into 2025, and I honestly don't think we'll have one that'll top that, James Boyd. He's not fat. Bring him back.
Hilarious. I thought it was hilarious
Mavericks
that
fans outside of American Airlines Center the other day.
Did you see them going out there with, like, the casket?
They had the casket.
I was like, he's not rolling over in his grave. Like, he's in L.A. Like, what is going on?
I love sports so much.
Yeah, and to me, those are the moments, and I get it, the great wins, the bad losses that hurt you forever, those are what make you a fan. But it's those funny moments, too, where you're just completely overboard in some degree, or completely ridiculous to some person who might not ever be this invested in sports. But there are moments where I'm like, you know what, you're absolutely right. Go do more.
Mark,
do more.
One more time.
Not back. Bring him back. He's not back. Bring him back. He's not back. Bring him back.
Short, concise, effective.
Yeah. And he's not fat.
Easily understandable.
Did he look 270 to you last night?
He didn't look 270 to me. 270. I mean, that's a big number.
Even if he is, he's still a top 5 scorer in the league.
I know.
I don't care if he can't play defense. Dude can shoot.
Yeah.
I know. It is amazing. I'm like, dude, that looks like a man that his diet is beer and pizza and cheese, and he can just hoop.
I mean,
man, he can hoop.
That's my whole argument. I think that's the most frustrating part. Fat Luka's better than everybody else.
Mark, what's our all Indiana parlay? And I guess we should probably fill in James Boyd in our audience that missed it last week.
Well, basically last week we just set some money on fire.
So James, I know you're not a huge gambler. Last Tuesday we did this parlay. We had kind of like what we have tonight. Tonight we got a huge hoop night.
Yeah.
Last week was very similar. I believe Mark, fill us in again. Purdue was a pretty good favorite last week, right? They were like a 7 or 8 point favorite at Iowa, and then everybody else was an underdog. Pacers second night of a back-to-back in Portland. Indiana was a big underdog. I'm trying to think who they had. Wisconsin, maybe.
Yeah. Notre Dame.
We threw Notre Dame in there. They were kind of pick 'em. Didn't we throw Ball State on there?
I did not, but yeah, we could have, and we could have made the odds even longer, and we could have ended the night a lot earlier than we already did.
So we were like at $10 to win 200 last week.
I thought it was more than that.
Well, I think if we threw Ball State in there, didn't it go above 1,000?
Yeah, it got a little out of control. Yeah.
Is this like it all has to hit like
yes,
a bunch of
correct.
legs?
So these are all money lines, so you have to pick the winners. Spreads don't matter, just the money line. Mark Dykton is putting together a similar one for tonight, and now
he doesn't look confident.
Our spreads are a little closer outside of IU, right? I mean, Purdue and Purdue and the Pacers are pretty much picked.
They are closer. Actually, you can actually get Purdue as an underdog tonight, which is probably rare.
So fill us in on the spreads. We aren't doing the spreads, but just so people know where we're at. Pacers, I think, are also a slight underdog.
Okay, so at the moment, let me see. Indiana is an 11-point underdog tonight.
This would be at Michigan State.
Yes, so there's that one. Another one I'm throwing on here, Indiana State plays Northern Iowa. If we're going all Indiana parlay, they are 8-point underdogs to Northern Iowa.
Shout out to Matthew Graves. Are they also on the road? Why are all these road games
they're all on the road.
Tuesday.
Purdue, let me find that because I just lost it. Purdue is obviously on the road, and they are playing where the hell did it go?
Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan. They are 2-point underdogs against Michigan. So you can get Purdue right now at plus 100 on the money line, which is probably pretty rare these days for Purdue. And then Ball State is hosting Eastern Michigan. They are 4.5-point favorites.
Come on, Michael Lewis.
I know.
As a favorite tonight.
And then obviously the Pacers underdogs against the Knicks at home. So,
and that's what, 1?
I believe so. Let me see if I can fly back and see what that is. Pacers are a 3-point underdog to the Knicks tonight. So,
boy, that's risen. Does that mean Miles Turner's not playing?
I don't know. So we got the Pacers on the money line, Purdue on the money line, Ball State on the money line, Indiana on the money line, and Indiana State on the money line. You guys want to venture to guess what a $5 bet pays out? We're just going half of 10?
No, let's go 10.
Okay.
Let's go 10.
You're going full 10.
I'm going to say 10 to win 1,500.
I'll say 1,200.
Is that right?
Kevin nailing it on the head. $10 pays out $1,500 tonight.
Let's go. Okay, what if we take out nothing against our mid-major programs? We obviously don't talk about Indiana State, Ball State a whole lot. If we took those two out, if we just stuck with Pacers, Purdue, and Indiana, that would be 10 to win what?
Well, real quick, because I did some math, just in case you don't want to just like light $10 on fire. If you want to just do like the longer odds, like if you want to do Indiana plus 11 and Indiana State plus 7.5, a $5 bet gets you 118 if that all hits. A $10 bet.
So you would take the spread there for
you
our
take
audience.
the spread for Indiana State and Indiana. That would pay out $236 for $10, $118 for $5, and then you're saying take out Ball State, take out Indiana State, and just do Indiana, Purdue, and the Pacers. Is that what you're saying?
All money line.
All right.
That's got to be 10 to win 100,
Let
right?
me adjust.
Indiana's such the outlier in that.
I know they are. I think they're plus 500 on the money line, so they are heavy underdogs. Let me put that in there real quick. Okay, a $5 bet, or we're doing 10, right? You want 10? 10 pays out $264 for money lines on Purdue, Indiana, and the Pacers.
What do you think, boys? First ranked win in nearly 2 years since Jalen Hood-Schifino went off at Mackey. How long ago does that seem for IU fans?
Eons.
That is their last ranked win.
I don't even think Jalen Hood-Schifino's in the NBA currently or on a G League roster.
He just got cut by the Jazz, didn't he?
Yeah, he got waived. So
Purdue's had like how many ranked wins do you think Purdue has had since Indiana's last had a ranked win?
Now you're just twisting the knife, KB.
Should I look that up?
Feel free. I do think that if it weren't Michigan State and they weren't ranked as high, I'd give them, a little bit more chance. But number 11, I don't think that losing streak against ranked opponents ends tonight.
So what do we want to do here? Do we want to go money line? Do you want to include the mid-majors? Do we not? What are we doing here?
I'm counting up the ranked wins.
I feel like
I'm not including the NCAA tournament, which would obviously only add to Purdue's case. They have 11 ranked wins since Indiana last had one. Damn.
I'm hoping for like a
damn. You should clip that.
I'm hoping for like a Leo last second 3 maybe to get that plus 11 to hit like they did the other night.
The half court heave.
Uh-huh.
I'll let you, however you want to light your $10 on fire, I'll let you operate in any way. I mean, if you want to be realistic, what about could you do Purdue and Pacers money line and then Indiana to cover?
That's weak though.
Well, I mean, do you want to win or try to win or not?
Yeah, I'm about to say is
okay. So
winning weak.
If you do Indiana plus 11, Purdue on the money line, and the Pacers on the money line, $10 pays out $84. So
that's a nice payday.
It's not bad. It's not as nice as
See, that's how they get you. That's how they get you, KB.
Mark's thinking way too much ego here. A winner is a winner.
That's true.
That would be the route that I would entertain.
Okay. Let's make a fan morning show official then. We're gonna go Pacers money line, Purdue money line, Indiana plus 11.
And that is
$10 pays out $84.
Okay. All right. I like it. Believe.
Mm-hmm. Baby steps. We'll get to the crazy parlays later. If you want to get bold, again, you can get $1,500 if all hell breaks loose tonight.
Jiffy Lube oil change. Not only that, Cluster Truck gift card, $25 coming your way. Give us a call, 317-239. Pop quiz is next.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Kevin Bowe and James Boyd, Mark Dykton. This will be the trio again coming up tomorrow. James, I enjoyed going over a few draft names with you earlier, Colts-wise. I know tomorrow you have just posted this up on The Athletic, some free agent names. I'm looking forward to kind of starting to throw a few out there. There's one that really, really stands out to me of the 10 that you listed. So it's about to be here, man. A month from today, we will be very busy in that legal tampering window. Well, at least I assume we'll be very busy, I guess I should say.
Yeah. I remember last year I was doing something for the New York Times, in New York actually, and I was walking around with my backpack in Times Square. And I was just sitting down and writing whenever we got a report or I got a text from somebody saying, hey, they're signing this guy or whatever. And so just picture me, everyone else doing their touristy things, and I was...
Wemby's playing chess over in the corner, and you're just typing away. That sounds like a great atmosphere, great ambiance.
I mean, it was cool. I mean, it wasn't like you're sitting there writing some Pulitzer Prize-winning piece. It wasn't like me and Zach's huge...
Sure.
It was just like, all right, write 3 paragraphs on whoever they sign and, go find that New York pizza. So it was a good time.
Yeah, that is a very rewarding slice of za for you. A reminder, we'll do the pop quiz in a few. Give us a call, 317-239-1070. $25 cluster truck gift card. Excellent stop. One of my good friends actually just had a child. Shout out to Jane Catherine Kennedy. And I gave him a gift card to Cluster Truck. I said, it's excellent.
Oh,
Perfect.
okay. I was wondering how he's going to put a button on that one because I was a bit confused there, Mark, for a second.
I know Evan hands out breakfast burritos. I don't know if he's handing out children. Me too.
Well, no, but he can make mom and dad feel pretty happy and honestly help out when certainly meals is probably the last thing that you're thinking about.
Mark, you would see the greatest stiff arm ever from me if he was handing out children.
Knowing how James Boyd operates.
James would be running the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Yeah, he'd be tackling Jalen Hurts off the float in Disney World. I'm trying not to be biased, obviously. This is our show here, but I really enjoyed the conversations with Rick Carlisle and Jeff Rabjohns today. I thought both of them very candid, very enlightening on 2 certainly different programs, franchises, however you want to look at it right now, but both of them, I think you will learn something about the current and the future states, and I would say neither held back, especially Jeff Rabjohns at 9 o'clock.
Not at all. I mean, he told it like it was, and I think that is the truth that people want to hear and probably want to hear from Mike Woodson himself, quite frankly.
It'd be one thing if you got the quote in the press release. Like if he... I mean, again, James, you have covered a lot of these types of stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get the quote in the press release or, even Shane Steichen. I'm trying to think of an exact example to it. I don't know, maybe like the Isaiah McKenzie, Tony Brown suspension from last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Colts maybe released a statement on that, and I think maybe when Shane was asked about it, he just kind of pointed to the statement. I could be wrong on that, but there have been instances, I think, where, hey, we addressed that in the statement. I'll let that kind of stand for itself. I don't love it, but it's better than nothing. And in this instance, we don't even have that.
Yeah, to not say anything and just let it fester the way it has, I think that's a weak look, especially when...
Because we haven't heard from Mike Woodson's mouth yet.
Right. And that is the weirdest part. Like, everyone's talking about you. Step up there and talk about yourself. And again, it's not going to change the reality of the situation, but at least lets people know, okay, he has some type of, say in this. And it's just a weird situation where you come in and your SID saying, hey, no questions about the biggest thing regarding your team.
It's something that's just going to fester the longer they wait to
it's
do it.
weird.
Just pawning it off on the SID, it's working his ass off and making, whatever, 1/100th of the money that Mike Woodson's making. It's just that
And I try to go there, Kevin, but
the wrong way.
That's how I feel sometimes when it comes to, even when we do Colts locker room stuff and guys don't want to talk. I'm like, wait a second. When you signed that contract, it said you would talk and you would do this, you would do that for those millions that most of you are getting. And so I don't want to count on the man's pockets. That's not my job. But I do think that from a character and accountability standpoint, if you're trying to teach young men how to be accountable, then get up there and be accountable for yourself.
Well said. Very well said. All right, let's head to the pop quiz phone line right now. Reminder again, Jiffy Lube oil change. If you go 5 for 5, no matter what, though, you'll get that $25 cluster truck gift card. James Boyd.
Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the pop quiz. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
James Boyd, number 1 through 8.
Give me number 7.
7. Who we got?
Tom.
Hello, Tom. Tom, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Heavy football on this pop quiz. Does that make you feel any better about your confidence level?
I'd rather have hockey, but I'll take football.
Boy, I might be the first person that's ever said that in the history of the pop quiz.
I wasn't serious.
Oh, okay. I got a little nervous there. All right, James Boyd will throw number 1 at you, James. Go right ahead.
Number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions after knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59 on Sunday. The Eagles led 34-0 before the Chiefs scored. Who jumped out to a bigger lead to start a Super Bowl? A, nobody. B, the Chicago Bears. C, the Seattle Seahawks. Or D, the San Francisco 49ers with the biggest lead or the biggest starting lead in NFL history for the Super Bowl?
That's actually a very difficult first question. Bears.
B, lock it in.
Was it Percy Harvin on the kick return, Scotty, to get that started? Certainly one that the man with the statue wants to forget outside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Tom, who'd you say?
I said Seattle.
Seattle. Okay. Number 2 here, Jalen Hurts rushed for 72 yards in the Eagles win, setting the record for the most rushing yards by a quarterback in a Super Bowl. Whose record did he break? Did Hurts break his own record? Steve McNair's, Colin Kaepernick's, or Patrick Mahomes?
You're not messing around today.
Those are 3 very different runners, Scotty. McNair, Kaepernick, and Mahomes.
What were the 4 choices?
Hurts' own, McNair, Kaepernick, or Mahomes?
I'm just going to guess Kaepernick.
All right. Number 3, there still has never been a shutout in Super Bowl history. The fewest points scored by one team in a Super Bowl remains 3, last done by the Rams against the Patriots in Super Bowl 53. Name the first team to be held to just 3 points in a Super Bowl. A, the Carolina Panthers. B, the New York Giants. C, the Minnesota Vikings. Or D, the Miami Dolphins.
Miami.
All right, lock it in.
So I'm very, very smart with that one. Number 4 here, there's never been a shutout. Sorry, I was confused there. I thought I was reading the third one there. While there's never been a shutout in the Super Bowl, there have been shutouts in the NFL and AFL championship games before the league merged in 1970. Which team pitched the last shutout in an NFL championship game? The Baltimore Colts, the Cleveland Browns, the Green Bay Packers, or the Eagles?
Baltimore.
All right, and then the last question of Scotty's pop quiz, which is hard, I will say. Name the only team to record a shutout in the AFL championship game. The Raiders, the Bills, the Chiefs, or the Houston Oilers?
Man. Well, this would have been back in the day when the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. I'll say the Chiefs.
Scotty, that was tough. That was brutal. Tom's smart, and Tom did well. If we're grading on a curve, we're giving. I'm glad he's getting at least a Cluster Truck gift card. There's no chance I would have gotten any of those right. Maybe number 1.
I probably got number 1. Number 1, I remember.
Gosh, that was an ass kicking, man.
Yeah,
number 1 was Seahawks, biggest lead in Super Bowl history to start a game, 36-0. He got there eventually.
Correcto.
James, he got 3 and 4 right?
That is correct.
Dolphins and Colts?
Yes, sir.
The 2 he missed. The last one, it was Bills, not Chiefs. And number 2, Jalen Hurts beat his own record. It's funny, when I think of that Super Bowl 2 years ago, Eagles-Chiefs, I remember the Mahomes scramble late. Remember the big scramble he had to kind of get into very chip shot Harrison Butker range. But, 70 rushing yards for Hurts in Super Bowl 57. Stay on the line for us, Tom. Busy Hoops night here. Again, 7 o'clock. You've got Purdue and Michigan. 9 o'clock, Indiana, Michigan State. Reminder, the Pacer game is a half hour later than normal. 7:30. tonight. If you're used to watching it on FanDuel TV, you can't tonight. TNT, your only telecast, and we'll have it obviously on our airwaves beginning at 7 o'clock. Game will tip at 7:30. And thank you to Rick Carlisle, and thank you to Jeff Rabjohns. And James Boyd, thank you to you.
Yes, sir. I'll be back tomorrow, bright and early.
Run it back 7 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks for listening to the Fan Morning Show, 93.5 on the 7.5 The Fan.